Yeah, I think my daughter's got a career in video clipping. Welcome to Inside the Numbers, the pre-Christmas Eve weekend edition with the People's Pundit. If you like the videos, don't forget to like them and share them far and wide, and that will be a great help to us, no doubt. They really do help. It's almost impossible to overstate how important it is for you to like the videos, of course, for you to share the videos and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. But we'd very much appreciate it if you would mosey on over to Rumble and sign up there, subscribe as well. And of course, the best place where you can follow our work and what we do is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com, where you would have had the topic of today's show for a couple of days, which we're going to go into in a lot of detail, plus a Q&A. All right. So, I'm going to get through this show. I'm, thank God, feeling better. Everyone's got the flu or a sinus infection or something. I'm telling you what, it's not going to ruin my Christmas. You see what we were up to last night? Christmas bomb. Pop! Actually, it's grenade, though. It's like, love, it's technically a grenade. But in any event, very cool. The dining room's looking holly jolly. Everything's looking holly jolly. The tree's looking beautiful. Locals, I'll show you that, actually, over the weekend. Because, we do Christmas Eve. We do it up. We do it serious. And we'll do some videos, show you how, I'm telling you, Laura is like Mrs. Christmas. What's awesome about this year is, as you can see from the video, is that the kids, they're getting older, but still remaining involved. You got to keep your family involved, and you got to stay involved with your family. That's the only way to do Christmas. Speaking of which, that's actually one of the questions in the Christmas poll. Get your comments in, your questions in. Laura will, I believe, right, Laura? You're going to grab them, throw them in the comment section on our end or on our chat section on our end so I can answer them as we go on. There are a few things I see a lot of people are talking about on Locals for sure, in the chat and elsewhere. Never Back Down has pulled their ads in Iowa and in New Hampshire. They have killed their reservations. That is a sign that a campaign is they know they're going to lose. All right, so well, that's not always true. Sometimes the campaign thinks that they're just far ahead and they don't do it. We'll talk more about this. I want to keep this a show as much about the Christmas poll as possible, even though I know a lot of your questions are going to deal with the race. We are now 20 something days out until Iowa. Where's my Iowa countdown? We have the crosstabs loaded up. That's why, but 23 days, 12 hours, 54 minutes and 20 seconds until the Iowa caucuses, and it looks like Donald Trump is headed to a historic route in Iowa we have not seen ever in an open primary. Yesterday, DeSantis's people were in the all over the media. Basically, media wants to know, what is success for you here? Listen, Iowa is a must-win for Ron DeSantis. He has no other path. They talk about how they built it for the long haul, but the truth is they did not. They do not have a viable path forward if they don't get momentum from the Iowa caucus. Nikki Haley is looking like it's potential. She could leapfrog Ron DeSantis, as I told you to look out for. Why? Because Ron DeSantis people, especially in Iowa, the vast majority of them throughout this entire process still very much liked Donald Trump. He's revered and beloved by the base and the Republican Party. And there wasn't really a big chunk of DeSantis voters who were saying, look, my second choice is Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley was always going to get the never Trump vote. And that if MAGA went back to Trump in droves, then that would leave Ron DeSantis with no lane. All right. Because Donald Trump would take the lane, which he has been, but I mean, dominate it. And Nikki Haley could kind of skirt ahead. The benefit is that Haley, for DeSantis, that Haley has no organization. However, Marco Rubio, right? Mitt Romney, there is a path in Iowa for the non-conservative, and she's not conservative. Let's get out of here. Get real. There's a path for the old McCain wing of the party, which is, it's small. It can't win, but it can cause the media to go into this incessant nonsense about, oh, she overperformed. What I saw yesterday was disgraceful and not a legit. I just want to say this before we move on to the Christmas poll. What I saw yesterday was disgraceful, embarrassing, and not a legitimate use for political polling in this country. In case you guys didn't see it, this was a textbook information war campaign. All of these sock puppet accounts popped up out of nowhere for Nikki Haley. Governor Sununu certainly helped. They clearly knew that the University of Massachusetts poll was coming through Lowell, the UMass Lowell poll was coming out. And they wanted to be able to tout the St. Anselm College poll, which showed Haley about 15, 14 points behind Donald Trump, or 13 or something like that. Listen, I like the Anselm College poll, but they screwed up. You have to screen for eligibility. There were Democrats in that poll, still a lot of them, and Democrats cannot vote at this point in the New Hampshire primary. It is what's called a semi-open or a modified primary. You can go to our Republican nomination map and you will see all of the rules, the delegates, how delegates are allocated. The deadline for a Democrat to change their registration and be eligible to vote in the Granite State primary has long been closed. So that was not good. And I can understand, I'm not making any accusations. I don't know, given how long they've been polling in that state, how they could not have seen that, or like, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that it was an honest mistake. But the CBS News poll appears to have done the same thing. So when you're seeing, and by the way, their moderate shares are ridiculous. I went over this yesterday. Conservatives will represent roughly 70% of the electorate in Iowa. The moderate share is only about a quarter. So I don't know where these 50%, 40% moderate numbers are coming from. Is it possible that'll change this time? Sure, I suppose it's possible. I just don't buy it. So anyway, the UMass Lowell poll comes out, and we can go over it a little bit later, but it's Trump plus 30, where others before the Anselm College and CBS poll basically had it. Then ARG comes out. You may notice that ARG is not on everyone's stuff. They're very old firm. They've been around a long time, but they have had a lot of issues. Donald Trump is not 3 points ahead of Nikki Haley in New Hampshire. Folks, do the math. It's not even mathematically possible at this point. Not with all of this, not with the dynamic we're seeing. And it was very clearly an information hit job. It started with attacking Poso and Poole in an attempt to silence them and get them to be distracted as opposed to what was going on there. I told you this for a while. There are people who were in the DeSantis pack and team, that consultants and pollsters, who are not really dedicated to Ron DeSantis. This is how it works when you choose the dark side. All right. I'm just being real with you. They were polling behind his back for Tim Scott and Nikki Haley for months. And then Tim Scott didn't catch fire. He began to for a hot minute, but he fizzled. Now Nikki Haley is like, well, who am I going to whore myself to next? And now that Ron DeSantis is out of money and the ads are down, I mean, you are in this much trouble and you waste money polling supposedly. I didn't see any crosstabs. I didn't see a methodology statement, right? And the media, who did they get to run these polls? Mediaite. You don't find it funny that Mediaite all of a sudden had those polls and didn't ask for crosstabs, didn't ask for a methodology statement, didn't ask for anything that is basic standards of disclosure for the American Association of Public Opinion Research? Nothing. This is a valid place to start to criticize polls. There's been a lot of polling misinformation this year. Normally in the modern era, most polling misinformation comes from the left. Okay. They use them, they weaponize them, they lie about them. This year, overwhelmingly, polling misinformation is coming from the right, the never Trump right, the establishment right, the establishment firms that can't poll an election to save their life. They blow it year after year after year and then call everybody else low quality. The Alan Fung +6 pollsters. All right. You got to stop. But this is what you can expect. Now, I wish it would stop, but it's not going to. And this is what you could expect. All right. So you take all of that money to run a poll when you're out of money and you can't run ads anymore. You take money to waste on attacking influencers who don't support you. I've never seen that happen before. Never. Disgraceful, embarrassing to the industry, but 100% in character with what you would expect from these people, these repeat offenders with BS. All right. So, leaning into this, right? I mean, you blow $100 million, and you're going to tell me about how you're going to get the national debt under control? Give me a break. All right. So get your questions in the comment. Don't forget, like I said, to like and share far and wide. Like and share far and wide. Let's get down with this, shall we? Getter should be running. It's running. I just can't see your comments yet, Getter. Sometimes a little bit. There we go. I had to refresh it and see what was going on there, but now I can see it. Don't forget to share your comments. I mean, share your links, like the thing, give us a heart. You know how it goes. Let's bring up the Christmas fall. As I stated the other day, I gave you guys an idea what percentage of the American voters, right, American voting electorate, the registered vote universe, what percentage do you think celebrates Christmas, right? Does the adult population have a higher or lower share? I would argue that it's probably a higher share, actually. The non-registered voter universe is probably a higher share. But either way, without further ado, the Christmas poll, the Christmas poll. Let's bring it up. I remember Gallup doing things like this years ago, and it appears they have stopped. It used to be a lot of fun. I used to love it. I used to, love stuff like this. Easter too, which we did ourselves. Do you celebrate Easter? Do you believe in the resurrection? And so I went looking through Gallup stuff and their years, and they kind of like falled off the map about after Trump was elected. They stopped it. I couldn't find anything beyond that. And I even inquired and asked about why certain things were done certain ways. So I'd be happy to do it now myself every year, because we've been doing things like this every year anyway. Last year it was, what is the country's favorite version of the Christmas Carol? My own social media's favorite version of the Christmas Carol. By the way, Alistair Sim won, I believe. But Muppets was like really close. So was George C. Scott's version. So in any event, during the Gallup years, it was roughly among all U.S. adults, 95% who told Gallup they celebrated Christmas, which is weird because there aren't that many Christians in this country, even though America is still predominantly a Christian nation. Yet, here we go. As you can clearly see, and I know it's all cross tab and it's going to be hard to see. I'll zoom in a little bit more. As you can see right there, 91.3% told us they celebrate Christmas. And there's how the question is worded. Simply yes or no. Do you celebrate Christmas? All right. Men and women, you'll find that like basically all the demographics are pretty much in line with each other. Even when you do by age, let's roll it up. As you can see, 18 to 24-year-olds are a little bit less, but then you look at 75 plus super seniors, and they're roughly the same as them. And then the heart of the country is in the 90s. There is some variation, 93 with 16 to 45, 65 to 74, excuse me. And 91 with 30 to 39, but all very close, 40 to 49, 92%. It doesn't seem that there is a danger in this country or an appetite. That's not the right choice of words. Before Donald Trump was elected in 2016, there absolutely was a danger of not being able to celebrate or even speak about Christmas in the traditional sense. That is true. If you're not old enough to remember, then you should do your homework and do your history, because it was not a very comfortable time. Everything was being challenged. You can't say this. You can't display that. You're not allowed to use this phrase. You got to use this more inclusive phrase. And it's like, up yours. If I want to say happy holidays, I'll say happy holidays. This time I'm specifically saying Merry Christmas. Think about this too. Who the hell is offended by Merry Christmas when this many people celebrate Christmas? Like, who do you think you are? And honestly, when Gallup asked it that year, it was 93 point, it was like 93 point something percent. So this tiny fraction of the country wants to make it so the rest of us have to ignore our observations, holidays, religious observances, etc. They are the vast minority. All right. If you go to by party, yes, Democrats are less religious, but they still celebrate Christmas at a significant share. All right. Roughly the national average. Republicans are above it, independents and other are behind it. If you look by ideology, very interesting. Obviously, conservatives are a little bit more, but they're all very close together. Moderates, liberals, everybody celebrates Christmas. Interesting. Republican by Republican identification. America Firsters are a hair more Christmassy than traditional Republicans, but not a lot, folks. By education, do you ever get too smart to celebrate Christmas? Not really. Advanced and post grads are right up there with high school and or less. If you have a 4-year degree, you're actually slightly higher than everyone else. By income, which I thought was interesting that there was a little variance here, because if you don't, it's possible that Christmas has gotten so commercial that people who have less money don't want to observe it like everybody else. It's possible. All right. And we'll get into the Christmas tree. We asked a series of questions about things you do for Christmas, and we'll get into that a little bit more. I just want to stick to the first topic of this question first. By religion, I thought was incredibly interesting. Here we go. Protestant, 97%. Catholic, 96%. Jewish, 57%. Laura, are you there? Can you speak or no? Are you able to comment? I'm just curious. Did this surprise everybody else that there were Jewish and Muslim voters who celebrate Christmas? Did it really? Because Laura, I wanted you to pop in because I remember when Laura was young, she had a lot of Jewish friends.
Mhm.
It was like you were either Catholic or Jewish in our neighborhood, right, Laura? I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
You were Catholic or you were Jewish. You were a Catholic Pole or you were Catholic Italian or Catholic Spanish or something like that, or you were Jewish. And your degree of, were you yeah,
Judaism was like
yeah,
Hasidic
were you
Jews and
right, right.
non-Orthodox and whatnot.
I mean, if you go to Lakewood during Christmas time, there are Christmas decorations everywhere. Of course, you're
Mhm.
going to see the menorahs all over the place because
Yeah,
obviously
there's
celebrating.
huge dreidels, and then there's Santa Claus, and
But very
then
clearly, they're
there's a
celebrating
nativity
Christmas.
scene, and
Yeah,
then there's a menorah.
yeah.
So it's pretty evenly blended.
Did it surprise you to see that many Jewish voters celebrate Christmas?
No, because
Yeah, me
especially
either.
growing up, when I was a kid, I had a really good friend, and every year when it came time, because Christmas and Hanukkah are like right next to each other, I would go over her house for the 7 days, and I would give her a gift each day, and then on Christmas Day she gave me a Christmas gift. So it was completely
Yeah,
100% like she was at my house for Christmas, I was at her house for Hanukkah.
yeah.
It was beautiful, and we all understood that we believed in God, and we weren't gonna nitpick each other over the details, and, that's how it's supposed to be,
And
you
our
know?
schools were extreme, even our public schools.
Yeah,
We were
the
out
Star
by
of
like
David.
December 15th. Yeah, we were out
Yeah.
by December 15th because you had
Yeah,
so
no,
many.
because we had off
Yeah,
for Hanukkah too.
yeah, yeah. Most of Hanukkah, most years was Christmas vacation. So
If you want me to be completely honest, the only days that we really didn't even get off were, like, Kwanzaa.
that
But,
wasn't
like,
even
even
was it even a
Passover,
yeah.
you remember up north, we had off on Passover.
Which brings me to this, Laura, actually, well, before we come back to religion, but which brings
Sorry.
me to this. The Northeast is the less religious part of the country, all right? And we can look by region and we can also look by census division. But if you go by region first, you can see the Northeast it's the least religious area supposedly of the country, yet 91% celebrate Christmas. And people are like a little bit surprised. I was looking at my comments. And other people that had seen it were like, I thought some of these more liberal areas wouldn't have these numbers. But the truth is, um, look, the Northeast was super. So, I mean, have you ever gone, guys, to Vermont during Christmas, or look at the New England? 94%. It's actually higher than the Mid Atlantic, where Laura and I are from.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, Pacific is a little lower than some of the other areas in the divisions, but even it's there's less religious observance, I would say, in some of these New England areas, and you're going to see that. But interesting stuff. All right, let me pop this back up. I just wanted to ask you that, Laura.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. Yeah, I mean, because I know some people were, and I'm thinking if you grew up like Laura and I grew up, you would not have been
And on that
surprised at
one.
all to see that. Yeah.
I
And
just
then
wanted uh,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, you did oh, I'm still alive. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Here.
Whoops. Um,
I put you off. Don't worry. So I thought you was trying to jump in again.
no,
Uh
I did wanna say one more thing. You
oh,
remember when
go
you
ahead.
asked me how many people do you think that actually celebrate Christmas? I shocked you.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Let me pop this back up. 98% of evangelicals. And this was asked, of course, if they were Protestant or another Christian denomination. Do you consider yourself evangelical? This excludes Catholics, by the way, and other not why? Because it's just a way evangelicals over the years have been defined by pollsters, exit pollsters, even people who do government work. I'll tell you, even Gallup, there's no such thing as a non-white evangelical. We like to consider. I think that's ridiculous. I do. That's why our numbers are always a little bit different with evangelicals. Um, if I want to show you white evangelicals, I will make another variable that's defined for just white evangelicals. That it is ridiculous to say that only white people can be evangelical. I don't know where Gallup got that from, but other people followed their lead, and that's the way it is. I've seen Korean evangelicals. I've seen, all sorts of different Asian evangelicals. I've seen some really diverse evangelical churches, so I have a hard time swallowing that. But other Protestants who are not evangelicals, 95% of them celebrate Christmas. And then you see that no opinion. Those are the cultural evangelicals that make up a lot of that no opinion that Robert and I are talking about a lot. You will normally see them fall somewhere between yes and no. Yes, I'm an evangelical. No, I'm not. And then that's how you know that they are probably most likely, got to look at the rest of their demographics, but most likely they are cultural evangelicals. They consider themselves to be roughly in that denomination. They're just not um, as active, I would say. They're not as, they're not, I go every Sunday and I am Wednesday Bible studies. Like they're not, and then they honestly get a little turned off by the church. So that's why evangelicals have changed over the years. We talked about this a lot on What Are the Odds, but you'll find them here. So I get asked this question myself. And honestly, I don't consider myself to be an evangelical, although I know that that's been my church for a while. I just don't myself consider, that I'm in that category. I do consider myself I'm a Protestant, non-denominational, but yeah, so I don't we'll leave it there. So let's go back to everything. Is there a difference between Trump and Biden supporters? For instance, Trump supporters celebrate Christmas at a higher rate, although it's close, but they do. I'm not sure anyone is a bit surprised by that. What about when we use the Trump v. Kennedy? And where is Trump v. Kennedy here? Huh. Oh, I see what I did. I'll have to fix that. Let's just for now, then we'll use the overall. I did not realize that. Sorry about that, guys. Trump supporters are the most likely to celebrate Christmas. Biden and Kennedy's are about the same as Lars Mapstead and others. Cornel West's supporters are the least likely to celebrate Christmas, even below Jill Stein at 87%. And undecideds, those who are undecided in the race initially, they are 88% yes. All right. So if we do use the leaners, for instance, we'll see Trump's supporters are still the most likely to celebrate Christmas, followed by Biden and Kennedy, and then Lars Mapstead, Lars Mapstead, Jill Stein, Cornel West. All right, so there it is. So there is some division. It's not a lot. It's the difference between 90 and 95. It's the difference. And then honestly, if you're considering Cornel West in there, 78 and 94, 95, right? Okay. But by the way, when you do leaners, it does close. Watch this. Trump and Biden with leaners, it closes a little bit. Though Trump supporters are still 4 percentage points more likely to say that they celebrate Christmas. Those who are undecided are less likely to say that. And it's kind of funny how when they do decide, and we get that 51.3 lead for Trump. It's funny how Trump is, I've been saying this the whole time. Trump is doing better with non-religious or non-religiously affiliated voters than Republicans tend to do or have done in recent years. They get killed with this group, yet this is not just this one poll. He has been doing this for the better part of 8 months now, 6 months. This is a big deal. And I think that secular rise, the so-called nuns, which I don't buy totally, as you guys know, that's something that Republicans are going to have to contend with. And here you have Trump doing that. All right, do you put up a Christmas tree? And let me get a let's go by age. Yeah. This way we can look at all of them at once by age. Do you celebrate Christmas? Do you put up a Christmas tree? As you can see here, actually, 18 to 24-year-olds, 90% of them who say they celebrate Christmas said they put up a Christmas tree. The lowest group is 75 plus. Why do you think that is? Because they're old. They're older. Sorry, I'm not offending anybody. They're older, and it may be difficult for them to put up their Christmas tree. I remember after my grandfather passed, I or my uncle or my father would have to go over to my grandmother's and put up her Christmas tree. She would not have been able to put it up if it wasn't for one of us going over to her house and doing it. I really think that that's where this comes from, because they celebrate Christmas at significant rates. It's not a matter of that. All right. So some of them think it's easier just to put up decorations. Look at this. And the 75 plus, right? A higher percentage say, yes, I put up decorations other than a Christmas tree. And as you can see, it's pretty much across the board here. This 50 to 64 group, it's possible that we start to see a decline with this group as far as putting up decor and stuff. And going different places, which you're going to see in a second. It's possible that's the case simply because that's when we start to feel older, and that's when we start to feel like, look, Laura and I, as my Christmas bomb video for my daughter showed, Laura and I love to go all out. But I'm 42 years old now. I don't know how much longer I'm going to have the strength to do what we do. Like, I have a storage unit, folks, just for Christmas decorations. I'm that friggin' guy. We're that family. And I imagine maybe when I'm 50, I'm going to need a lot of help, or I'm not going to want to do it. My son, he's 14, my oldest son. Well, by that time, he won't be around anymore. He'll be in college or something, maybe even graduating college. Right? 50, that's 8 years. Yeah. He'll be getting his 4-year degree, and he may move on to other things. I'm sure he'll come home for Christmas, but maybe. Who knows? We'll see. I hope so. But he is here to help me right now. When he's not there to help me, I fall off ladders like I did last year. And it's just reality. So my point is, I don't think there's anything beyond that happening here when we look at the ages and what they do. Putting up decor, as you can see, 87% put up decorations other than a Christmas tree. And there it is by age. The display decorations with religious meaning, i.e. a nativity set. Only 57% do that. Before we move on, I want to show you that by religion. Okay. And there, just to show you, put up a Christmas tree. Protestants, Muslims put up Christmas trees. A lot of them do. And by the way, a lot of them had dual households. So they were practicing Muslim, and they came from a family of Presbyterians or something. I kid you not. This we see a lot when we interview urban Black voters. There may be a Muslim in the household that we're speaking to, but his family is traditional. There are different denominations in the Black church, whether they're North or South, but they're in a household that still has very much a Christian background, and that's what we're seeing. So we hear a lot of that. That's my point. All right, so by religion, do you put up decorations with religious meaning? Catholics and Protestants do that more than others, except for Muslims, of course, because it's a smaller sample size, so I don't want to take too much out of the larger denominations. You can see that, and that shouldn't surprise anybody, Okay. Catholics put up the Christmas tree more than Protestants do. Although when you look at evangelicals, you'll see that number's huge. Get together with family or friends. 91% will do that. They'll get together with family and friends on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. For Catholics and Protestants, it's a very big thing, as you can see. And I remember I was raised Catholic. We still have all the traditions, and Sunday will be a big deal for us. Sunday will be the Feast of the Seven Fishes. It's a big deal. It's probably the day where I miss some of my family that I don't see because they're too far away more than any other day of the year. I can go just fine without seeing you guys. No problem. But I miss you all on Christmas Eve. That's the one day when the house was packed. As an Italian boy growing up with his grandmother, I mean, the house was slammed. My dad worked a lot, and I was with grandma and grandpa most of the time, and that was the bustling time of the year. Helping my grandmother make strufala and stuff, Attend religious services on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Catholics, they do it more than Protestants, but as you can see, that's very much it. Overall, only 48% of Americans who celebrate Christmas will go to a religious service on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. 46.7, almost identical, very, very close, say they don't. That includes 35% of Catholics. Listen, I got to say this because I honestly think a lot of Catholics out there are probably commenting in the thing right now about this. Catholics are very pissed about their Pope. American Catholics are unhappy with their Pope. They're not going to their church because of it and a lot of other things. This is a serious problem for the American Catholic Church. And I know they think they love him and he's so progressive, but there's a lot of Catholics in this country who don't like Pope Francis. That's a shame to me because I remember how much my grandmother just adored John Paul II, adored Pope John Paul. And I never met a Catholic back then who didn't like him. Never. By the way, I got to touch his prayer beads. I got to hold his prayer beads. I kid you not. His like personal rosary. I don't know if I should. I mean, I could say it's now in the hands of John O'Shea, actually. And I'm telling you, you just feel how holy that man was when you touch that. I'm not saying, I'm not a Catholic. I don't worship others. I'm just saying he was a devout man and you could feel his faith on those prayer beads. It just such a beautiful thing. So there we have it. By age is a good way to look at this too. Attending religious service, if you haven't had a chance to do it yet. As you can see, there are older people who maybe feel that they can't get there. 43% of voters who celebrate Christmas that are over the age of 75 will go to religious services on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. 50% will not. That's in contrast to 51.8% of voters who are 18 to 24. They will. 41% will not. Younger people in this country, something's happening. Something's changing. I'm not saying that, they're going to be super conservative. I am saying that something is different. Something's going on. 30 to 39 is the group that will go to church the most. 55% of them will go to a service on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Another 41% will not. All right. Let's go I already did that, right? Really quick, we could just do evangelicals. And there it is. Evangelicals, 65% of them will attend a service on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. And then also by region is another interesting way to look at that. And then we can also go to region detail. And as you can see, by the way, the Northeast is actually, you will see more religious icons in the North and the South than you will in the Midwest and the West. That's pretty interesting. The West actually appears to be the most secular part of the country now. And get together with family and friends. Big deal in the Northeast too. Here we go. Going to religious services in the South, which is obvious. I mean, that shouldn't surprise anybody. They will go to religious services more than anybody else at 51%. And the Northeast is just behind them at 49%. The Midwest, only 45%. And the West, only 44. By census division, if you want to drill down a little bit more, which is region detail, if you want to drill down on that question a little bit more, yeah, it's there we go. As you can see, New England specifically is where it drops. The Northeast also includes the Middle Atlantic. A lot of Catholics. New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. A lot of Catholics. Irish Catholics, Italian Catholics. Right. And what you're seeing there is that in New England, they may like to have their cute little stores where they sell trinkets and make a living. But apparently, rural New Hampshire is not what it used to be. Vermont is not like it was in White Christmas. Things have changed. Religiosity is coming basically in this case from Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania in the Northeast. So maybe that does help us understand some of the changes too that we're seeing when it comes to politics. But the South Atlantic, Florida, right, all those areas, that's slightly more positive. East, South, Central, 50 or 60%, really. The Pacific again and is lagging at 46. So is East, North, Central, and then the Mountain Range 40%. Honestly, I wonder if some people who are in more isolated areas say they don't go, not because they wouldn't, because they're in a more remote area. And it's possible. Explore all different possibilities. Let's move down. You exchange gifts. 92% of Americans who celebrate Christmas say they will exchange gifts. I'm not sure that region detail is that big of a thing here. What you will see is, but if we go by age detail, for instance, and yeah, we could see race. Just give me a sec. I'll go back and look at all this when we get down to the nitty gritty of this year. But exchange gifts, young people are the least likely to say it, but they still do. 86%, 25 to 29, still young. 93%, 30 to 39, 94, 40 to 49, 93. I guess, when you start to get my age and above, you do still have some, obviously you have kids, but you're basically just exchanging, gifts. Is your loved one anymore? I remember my dad would always say, no, don't get me anything this year. And yet he'd still buy my mom something, and she'd be pissed. And she'd say, Richard, I told you we weren't getting anything this year. Right, Laura? And he'd be like, they're just earrings, Diane. They're just earrings. And then the next thing you know, she'd be like, well, it's a good damn thing because I got you this. Do you remember that, Laura? Damn it, Diane. I told you. It's like, hey, can we watch the language on Christmas morning? They were hilarious. God love them. Anyway, still, those are super seniors, 91%. Seniors, 65 to 74, 93%. So here we have it. Here's one of my favorite questions coming up. Do you or your family do the following to celebrate Christmas or not? Reflect on or celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. 68%. That's literally almost every single religious Christian person plus in this country. 18 to 24-year-olds, 61% of them reflect on or celebrate the birth of Christ. 25 to 29, were a little less at 57. 30 to 39 was a super majority. 40 to 49 was over a super majority. 50 to 64 was above 70% at 72. So was 65 to 74 and 69% of super seniors. How could that be if less than half of the country will go to religious services? And then there's another series of questions where you will see how spiritual Christmas still is to people. This poll, as we're reading this, and I've hinted at it and I've said it on other shows, this poll tells us that we have a crisis of the church in this country. We have a crisis in church leadership. It has failed. The shepherds have failed the flock. This poll tells you that people still want they want the whole thing. They want the whole kit and caboodle. What the story and sacrifice of Christ means to them. They do not want to put aside the nativity for only the jolly fat guy in a red coat. It's just that they don't like the church. I mean, why? How could you say that you reflect on the birth of the Christ and then not attend church? There has to be a good reason for it. I don't know if you were watching Battleground on Wednesday when I was on with Sean Parnell. He was talking about his experiences, and now he's Catholic, and now he's a perfect example. He can't stand the Pope, but what had happened to like his family? The Catholic Church appears to just not have recovered from their scandal. Let's be honest, their child abuse, sexual abuse scandals, and then they went ahead and elected this radical pope who at least 35-40% just don't like, and they're in trouble. And then you have the Protestant side of this, where you have all of these grifting church leaders. I mean, people are just not dumb. It's sad. Laura and I, we moved over 3 years ago. We still can't find a place to replace our church. That's personally on my end. Not that I dislike anyone. I just don't feel like that's a good home for us, or like the ones we've seen so far. It looks like a lot of people, but I'm sure as hell, sure as hell going to reflect on and celebrate the birth of the Christ on Monday. And before that, I've been celebrating, and I'm going to continue to celebrate. There's a big problem. We could have a third great awakening, folks. That's how much the country is yearning for God. Do you remember years ago when the History Channel did the special? What was her name? Trump's friend, actually. He knows her. Who produced it? She's her and her husband are very well known Christians, and they do a lot in the church. I just can't remember their name, but they did the Bible. They produced the Bible, and she played Mary in it. She played an older version of Mary. And viewership, the ratings were through the roof. Do you guys remember that? And people were like, oh, I don't get it. How could, people in the media. I'm like, this is doing really well. I mean, it's just a show about the Bible why are people tuning in every Sunday? This is kind of crazy. Because people were yearning for God. And sadly, when you don't have him, you put something else in your heart. You think you're another gender. I'm sorry. It's just true. You lose touch with reality. You don't have God that you feel like you belong with. Some young boys, so they think MS-13 is their home instead. This is what it is. This is the practical impact of when you lose that. All human beings have this hunger for it, and they don't really know how to direct it or in a healthy way. And I blame the church. I do. This is where that to me, I thought we were going to find this, Laura, around 40%. I'm not joking. I thought we were going to find that it was generally a lot of people who celebrated Christmas, that it got really commercial. People don't consider what it's really about anymore. It's more about tradition to them than it is about religion. And that's just not what we found. I love it when the American people surprise me, and when it's pleasantly surprising. I can't hear you. I can hear you, Laura, but they can't. She said that's what I don't know if she's going to pop in. Do you want to pop in? Yeah, go say that. Say that.
That's what they want you to believe. Mainstream media wants you to believe that everybody is just so self-centered, that Christmas is only about buying gifts, buying yourself gifts too, because I've seen those commercials. That's real fun. And buying, just wasting money. They don't want you.
Treat yourself to this new car. You deserve it.
Remember that commercial?
Or I was getting you a gift the other day, and I watched a woman. There's something you're going to find out in a couple of days. I'm not going to tell you, but there's something that's in kind of high demand. And I watched a woman buy it for herself, and she was joking about it.
Oh my God.
And she's married. I saw the ring. She had a wedding ring.
That's a whole lot of special.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking to myself, what if your husband went to 80
Do
stores like I
y'all
did?
not communicate?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Well, I
But
mean,
anywho, the
don't
mainstream media doesn't want anybody to believe that there is a strong Christian foundation or just a belief in God in general. Because what does God do? He unites, right? Unites people,
that's
and
true.
that's the one thing they can't have.
I love Balsam Hill, man. Oh my God,
Are
Laura
you
Whitney.
eating those snacks, Richie? Richie?
It wasn't me.
Oh
He
yeah.
made me do it.
Oh God, the Fauci elf.
Did you take your jab this holiday season?
Oh, I gotta go.
Tell me,
That
Anthony. Tell me, Jingle Bam. You want to sit and read the poll results with me, buddy? Let's do this. All right, Anthony. You ready? Do you attend Christmas parties? Did you know this, Anthony? 66% told us they will attend Christmas parties. 29.6% said that they will not. Can you stop jingling so much? I mean, you jingle an awful lot. What happened to your finger? I did that to you the other day, huh? All right. Young people will attend at a higher rate. That probably isn't that surprising to anybody. 77%, 18 to 24, 25 to 29 is 80%. And then when you get older, 75 plus, 49% said that they will, 46% said they will not. And then a Christmas player concert was the last of this slew. We have other questions, but attend a Christmas player concert was only 44%. Another 52 will not. We're on that. We went to go see the Nutcracker, the local production of the Nutcracker, for my daughter, which she loved. Let's see. By religion, let's see if there's that. I mean, honestly, I went through a lot of these, but there's so much I personally can't remember it myself. Catholics, and they will attend Christmas parties, almost 70% of them. Same goes for Jewish. Muslims are up there, man. They get holly jolly, apparently. And even though it's only 45 of them, it's like still 45 people we spoke to who are Muslim. 40 of them say they're going to a Christmas party. That's interesting. Another religion, 68%. No religion, 58. Let's go back a little bit and let's go back. 27% of people who say they don't have any religion reflect on and celebrate the birth of the Christ. So don't tell me we don't have a failure of the church in this country. As Dr. Steve Turley has pointed out over and over again, religion is playing a huge role in the development of some of these political developments we're seeing in a lot of these areas around the world. It doesn't mean just because they tell a pollster they're a nun does not mean they do not believe in God. That simply is not true. And interestingly enough, I had sent him something about that just to show him. And he actually wrote back this. Religion is playing an increasingly important role in the world today, precisely because civilization is playing an increasingly important role. The key here is that the renewed significance of religion is not necessarily involving theological importance as much as the role it plays in designating and distinguishing one's cultural identity. That's exactly what Barnes and I are trying to explain to people. For example, religion is playing a significant role in the populist politics of some of the most secular and secularized nations. France, the Netherlands, the United Kingdom, and Hungary all have seen the rise of successful populist movements and parties that have drawn on the power of religion to define national and civilizational culture and identity. Translation, you don't have to go to church to be religious. And that, by the way, was from the Religion and the Global Rise of Civilizational Populism is where he said that he talked about that in. Dr. Turley Dr. Steve was 100% on the money when he made that argument. 100%. Exchange gifts, no religion, 90%. Even 17% who say they don't have a religion still will go to religious services on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Now, are some being dragged along by their family to do that? I'm sure. I have no doubt. But it's still, it's significant. 87% of them will get together with family and friends on Eve or Christmas Day, and a quarter of them put out a nativity scene. So a quarter of the Or think of that. A quarter of people who say they don't have any religious affiliation are going to put up a nativity. That, God is good, but that's what I'm saying. Like that, this is a church issue. This isn't a God issue. Anyway, so there it is. What else we got here that we can bring up? Oh, my locals community. If you guys, for instance, let's compare. Hold on one second. I got a bunch of responses from my locals community. I wanted to compare them with the rest of the voting electorate. They were quite different on some of the religious stuff, but here, hold on. I'm like, for instance, this question. Where's the locals one? Here it is, right? Yeah. So not about 265 people from my locals community took this poll, and one of the big differences was, do you prefer a real tree or an artificial tree? My locals community said 51.7% said real tree, 43.1% said artificial, another 5 said I really don't have an opinion. But at the electorate overall, a third said a real tree. Or no, I'm sorry, that's Protestant. A little over a third, 35.8%, so 36% overall said they prefer a real tree. 58% said they prefer an artificial tree, and 7% or 6.6 said they have no opinion about it. That surprised me a little bit. And then, although I was thinking later that is it possible that people are saying, well, prefer was, I should have wrote, regardless of which one you display or which one you put up. I should have said that. And by the way, only people who told us in prior question that they will put up a Christmas tree got this question. If they said no, then they didn't get this question. So next year, maybe I'll say, do you prefer, regardless of which one you will display, do you prefer a real or artificial Christmas tree, or do you not put up a tree? Right. And I did that. I don't know why I did not. That should have been changed, but it's fine. I'm just saying it should have been. That was the old version of it. I tweaked it this year. So anyway, Protestants, 33% said they prefer a real tree. Catholics, 40% like a real tree. And Jewish and Muslim is small subset. I could have put it together, but they by majority, I think if we put them together, it's, let me see. So that's 39, 46 plus 30, 40. Yeah, so more of Jewish and Muslim voters together prefer a real tree than an artificial tree. If they have another religion, 36%, no religion, 35%. So I wonder if next year, if I was to say, regardless of which one you put up, do you prefer? Because I'll be honest with you, I prefer a real tree. But I display, Laura and I, the kids have a small real tree. Laura and I, our tree, the one locals you see every year, that one is art. It's artificial. It's a balsam hill tree, but I prefer a real one. Like, I wish I had a real spruce. It's just they're difficult to find, and what we put on the adult tree, the grown-up tree,
Mhm.
is I'm worried a real tree will drop them or something. Like, you know what I mean, Laura? Like, when it weakens, inevitably, some of those finials are just so big, and
Those finials will not hold on a
on a
real
real
tree.
tree, no way.
They will slip off, and I will cry. And it will be a catastrophe.
You should show people. Well, I'll take pictures of it. I'll post, because I take really good pictures of the Christmas tree. You got to get close. You can't like get an out point.
Well,
You get this like full point of view where you're like taking a picture of the whole tree. The lights all blur together and you can't really see anything. I like to get pieces of the tree, in different shots. Like, for instance, let me see.
look at this one. He always says my pictures aren't good enough. I tell him kiss my grits.
Yeah, it's not that they're not good enough, babe. It's just that you got to get closer with the Christmas tree. You know what I mean? They're weird like that. Oh, look, there's your nail. You and Brina, you're so cute. I love when you do girl things together.
Me too.
I really do. So adorable. Yeah, for instance, like the ones I sent my dad, like the new bead collection that we got. Although I like the burgundy best. I really oh, look at that. Here, I'm gonna send this to you, Laura, just so I can take it and send it to them and
I
show
got
everybody.
yes, love.
Yeah, I'm sending it to you so I can basically take it
Copy.
now and upload it. Yeah. Come on. Come on, load up, load up. Load up, load up. There it is. Okay, so let me open it here, save it, and then upload it for people while we're going over this. Open with preview. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Whoops, I just lost it.
I just saw somebody's comment, and it's I give those people who do have cats and put up a tree a lot of credit
Oh, yeah.
because let me tell you, I have friends that show me pictures of their cats inside the tree, sticking out, tree going down, and I'm just, I would have so much gray
A
hair if a
canary.
cat went into this tree.
Yeah, canary. I would absolutely lose my you
You
know
would
what.
have a heart attack. Yes.
I would never be able to deal with it, Laura. You know it.
I
You know
know.
it. All right, let me put this up so the picture will show better. But this was early. Everything wasn't on the tree yet, but it's an example of what I'm talking about. If it ever loads, come on, there we go. Bang! Like you got to get a close up. Like bang, you know. Those finials are big. They'll never hold on a real tree. So, I love it. I love our tree though, Laura. I do. I love it, even though it's artificial. Do you remember the one my parents gave us when we got married? I was talking with one of my daughter's friends' moms the other day, and I was getting nostalgic over it. Laura and I had this beautiful artificial tree. Back then, it was like one of the really good ones that my dad and mom had bought. And then when Laura and I got married, they gave it to us, and it was our tree for many, many years until I could not fix it anymore. It was but we again got real trees too, and our kids get to put their ornaments. Or this year, I gave them some of my grandmother's and father's parents' older ornaments because it is on carpet. So if it falls, it falls. It won't break. All right, so here we go. This is one of the last bigger ones, and it's 1 o'clock. We'll take a break, and then we'll have some fun with the color scheme stuff. But thinking of the way you personally celebrate Christmas, is it a strongly religious holiday, a somewhat religious holiday, or not too religious? Huh, this is incredible to me. For a third of people, it's strongly religious. Over a third, it's somewhat religious. And about another quarter, it's not too religious, but that doesn't mean it's not. Only 4% had no opinion. So 70%, and we know more than 90% of the country celebrates Christmas. So 70% of 90% believe in this country that Christmas is, and not just believe, that's how they celebrate it as a religious holiday. At least. And that's, by the way, and that should be prefaced with at least. Because there could be people who would say, we don't make a big thing out of this, that, the other. So it's not too religious. But that doesn't mean that they're personally not considering it a religious holiday. It's just maybe they don't go to church, and maybe they don't have prayer every 10 seconds and walk with candles and sing about religious hymns and stuff and carols. You know what I mean? But it doesn't mean they're not thinking about the birth of God. And we know that from the other poll question. If you are a Christian in this country who's worried about the health of Christmas, there's reason to rejoice here. If you're worried about the spiritual health of Christmas and you're wondering whether or not it just got too commercial and we lost it, that's not the case. Are we a little bit wayward right now? A little. Have we lost? Have we wandered off the path a little bit? A little, but that's not our fault. Again, if the flock wanders off, whose fault is it? The flocks or the shepherds? The flock is the flock. It's the shepherd's fault. They should stop. Hold on one second. I'm sorry, Laura. I'm having a difficult time after an hour. My throat is killing me. They should stop engaging in things they have no business engaging in and do their damn job. Look after their communities. Look after the spiritual health of their communities. Not selling printouts of campaigns and endorsements for $100,000 a pop. It's probably not the appropriate thing people want to see. Look at the polls in Iowa. CBS, Des Moines, like they don't want them telling them. You know, they just don't. It's like, look, save my soul, not my country. And of course they have a role to play. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it appears like priorities, maybe the amount of energy they give to one, but not the other. Maybe the priorities are a little bit messed up there. That's what I'm saying. All right. So we do have to take a break. All right. Get some words from our sponsors. And when we come back, we will go over the last bit of the survey, which is fun old stuff, and get your thoughts on it as well. And then I'll try to answer as many quick questions as I possibly can. All right. So actually, let me take a drink of water. I'm going to do a 30-second timeout here. Let me do a drink of water. We'll come back. We'll do the ad reads and then get right back to it. All right. Stay tuned. Maybe that'll help my throat a little bit. All right, let's take a quick break. Speaking of being sick, how appropriate. I introduced you to the wellness company and their medical emergency kit a couple of weeks ago. It's a must-have. It's a must-have. We got ours. It's on the way. May even be here today. And this product is another one that I genuinely believe that every American should be taking and at the very least have on hand for when it's necessary. It's called Spike Support, so listen up. If you're not taking that something, if you're not thinking that something at this point is up, with so many, previously healthy young people experiencing myocarditis, blood clots, turbo cancers, menstrual irregularities, tragedies like miscarriages, and the quote new died suddenly phenomena, then you're not paying attention. The culprit is the spike. Spike is a lingering threat from both the you-know-what juice and the man-made you-know-what, linked to all kinds of long-term issues. And even Big Pharma is admitting it now. So many people, myself included, we're all looking for answers and ways to stay healthy despite the spike that are part of our population now. And while we know those answers won't ever come from mainstream sources, thank God for truth-seeking doctors like Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Drew Pinsky, and their team at the Wellness Company. Great company. They have emerged to provide answers and, more importantly, hope. There's one question that these doctors are asked every single day. Listen, I listened to the so-called experts. I got it. Now, how do I get rid of the spike? Thanks to the Wellness Company, there's actually something we can do. That's Spike Support. It's a unique blend of natural ingredients that aim to block and dissolve the spike in your body so you can get back to that pre-vid feeling and stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. There's a ton of testimonials on the website right here you're seeing from Spike customers that report increased mental clarity, energy levels, among many, many other things. Go read them and check it out. Go reclaim your health at twc.health/TPP. Use the code TPP for 10% at checkout. And that's for either Spike Support or the medical emergency kit. You can get either one, get both. Everyone's got to have one of these on hand, if not both. Again, that's twc.health/TPP. In this fight for truth and medical freedom, we all owe it to ourselves and our families to take back control of our health. All right, one more real quick so we can get it right to the questions. Let me tell you about these great new deals. Maybe you need a last minute thing for a gift or something for your friends. Here's our friends at Jam and Bean. They got something for you. It's Michigan, handcrafted Michigan made boxes under $30. All right, perfect little gifts. Look at I love these guys. Talk about the vid, like I've said over and over again. if you're looking for heroes during COVID, aside from some of these doctors like Dr. Peter McCullough and Dr. Drew Pinsky, the heroes were really the average Americans, the business owners, the everyday people who fought back during the tyranny of COVID. All right. They are one of them. They're Michigan based, and they have just amazing gourmet popcorn and the other things. My favorite medium roast on the market. I am not a huge fan of of medium roasts, but without a doubt, I think that they did the R&D. They put the time and the money in, and they got it right. And it's full bodied. It's delicious. Anyway, when you sign up for a new subscription at Jam and Bean, use the promo code TPP at checkout. TPP40, excuse me, TPP40 at checkout. That'll get you 40% off a new subscription, whether it's coffee, gourmet popcorn, whatever. That'll get you 40% off right off the rip. And every month when it renews, which is double the amount of the, by the way, that's double the amount of the deal they're running for their normal customers now. All right. So double the savings. Right. And when you get that subscription updated every month, it's still going to knock 10% off the renewal fee. Again, it's Jam and Bean, JAMN Bean.com. Use the promo code TPP40 at checkout and get yourself those savings. Get your family, your friends a late gift, and we will see you in the new year. Always send us what you think about it. Tell us what your favorite products are. We love to hear from you about them, and we pass them along each and every time. JAMN Bean.com. All right. Let's see real quick. Let's go through the last Christmas poll. Laura, I'll respond to you in a hot second. Let's go through the last of the Christmas poll, and then we will go into other things. All right. Hang on one second. This would be a nice little surprise. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Preferred Christmas color schemes. Generally speaking, which Christmas color scheme do you prefer? Signature red and green, 1, going away. I'll tell you what, America, you got some funk ass Christmas ideas. However, honestly, they had some great ones too. And that's cool, Laura. We can do that. We can do it, Laura, if you understand what I'm saying. Absolutely. That's a nice little surprise. It is. Signature red and green took it with 57%. Classic red and white took it with 20%. I went through, listen, Martha Stewart, the Biltmores. I had the Biltmore Estate. I went through all these like bougie things to find out what the appropriate name of these color schemes were. And while everyone had their own little thing, I managed to put together 5 that are repeat themes that have, are time tested and have endured. And then I gave people the option for other, if they wrote it in, then they were more than welcome, to tell us what it was. And there were some very interesting ones, which I'll show you in a second. But I was able to regroup them and break them down into shared schemes. And you'll see what I mean. Anyway, metallic silver and gold, classic red and white, like candy cane stripe, classic red and white, like you see actually on the Christmas poll thing right there. There's the red and white. There are just red and white themes. If you go to Balsam Hill, the Nordic collection is just red and white. The Biltmore has different kinds. They have, red and green and gold and silver and blue and white. So Victorian blue and white silver actually became very popular because of the Rockefellers and others who pushed it. But anyway, metallic silver and gold, big deal. Anyone who was in New York, that tied with Victorian blue and silver. Although I did notice, Laura, when weighting is applied, Victorian blue and white silver got one more vote than silver and gold. So we're going to have to flip that. I'll have to go in there and change that afterwards. Victorian blue and silver technically came in third. Metallic silver and gold came in fourth. And then you have these pinks and champagnes. Martha Stewart actually began calling it rose gold before there was ever a rose gold apple, like color scheme. I didn't know that, but I found it out during my research. So the pink and champagne, the rose gold, that came in last, but with quite a lot of people who chose that they like that as their color scheme, 4%, right? Other and write-ins for the all mixture or I rotate each year, 35% of the others said that they either love them all, it's like all the above, and I mix them, or they said all the above because I rotate. That was interesting to me. So much so that I may even add it next year because I wonder how many people would have said that given the chance. Or maybe we won't add it as an option. We'll add it as like a follow-up question or something. Black and white, 7%. And again, it was a flip here. We got to go through. I don't know why they were all 7. I didn't realize they had different percentages, but that's rounding to the 100th of decimal. Black and other, white and other, the red base, green base, and then red, green plus others, like red, green plus white, red, green plus gold, red, green plus silver. And then the purple, with purple base with different variations, actually 4% of others said that. And then there were others that were just frankly a lot of rustic stuff. People who said, I like the rustic look, the kind of like Yukon Christmas look. You might have seen that in my daughter's Christmas bomb. We have some of that, plaids and Yukon stuff. And then no preference was 14%. When I say no preference, these people were like, I don't give up. Literally said that to us, many of them. So I'm like, dude, it's the Christmas poll. Can you watch your mouth? Anyway, there we have it. Listen, before we run to questions, I just want to bring on a surprise here. So he's going to come and wish us a Merry Christmas and talk about a recent column that he wrote that I thought was fantastic. And I asked if he could just join us ASAP to discuss it because I know that so many of your questions are about what happened this week in Colorado. So I'm going to bring him on now without further ado. You know him. Daniel Street, author and lawyer and author, really. Daniel Street. Daniel, welcome to Inside the Numbers, buddy. Merry Christmas.
Hey, glad to be here. Merry Christmas to you. I have to tell you, Rich, I was watching the show once I got to the studio, and I was well pleased to see the percentage of people in this country who recognize that that Christmas is about the birth of Christ.
Insane.
That's a good
I'm pleasantly surprised, right, Daniel? Like pleasantly surprised. I did not think we were going to get numbers that high. And I went back and I looked at Gallup, and Gallup had these ridiculous numbers for A, people who celebrated Christmas, and then B, people who said that in fact is a religious holiday to them, and they understand, they contemplate the birth of Christ and what that means. And I didn't believe it. I'm not going to lie. And it has been a while since Gallup did this. So I'm thinking it's probably very different now, and it's not, it's not. So we got a crisis of the church in this country, Daniel, but we do not have a crisis in faith. We have a crisis in faith leaders. And I think that unfortunately that's leading to people who are searching for like God and a relationship with God doing unhealthy things and filling that void with unhealthy beliefs and actions. And I think that's a big part of our problem, in our culture and politics.
Well, time and time again, I find that the American people are very resilient, and the masses of American people are very decent, and I think that's what's reflected in your Christmas poll. Honestly,
Yeah, they are. They are. It's funny you say that because people who don't remember 2016 polling that election was just crazy, and people who don't remember it, this. I don't even know what to call it. This like fight over Merry Christmas and like all of this stuff. You couldn't say Merry Christmas. I think people have forgotten what was going on back then, and I really did believe, that the American people understand like what's at stake at this point, and that it's like you can trust them. Maybe it takes them a while to come along, but you can trust them to come along. After a while, and they may not always make the right choice every time, Daniel, but when it matters, it's like crunch time for them. You know what I mean? Like they're like a clinch hitter, man, or they come in clutch, like they really come through when you need them to. It's a bullet dodge, but yeah. Speaking of which, you wrote this article on your Substack, which I just thought was fantastic. A lot of people, the anxiety level in this country is really high. So people who don't, I'm going to share it with everybody right now. It's Trump disqualified from the ballot in Colorado, and you give your analysis on it, which, like you said, really could be like the short version. I'm going to share it with everybody, Daniel. I want you to tell people your thoughts on this.
Sure, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. I will say one of the difficult issues that we deal with all the lawfare against Trump is that so much of it is very, very complex.
Yeah.
And trying to distill it down to a handful of issues and bullet points that the average person can understand, it can be a very challenging thing to do. So I tried to do that in my Substack, but really what it boils down to is the Colorado Supreme Court, and these are issues addressed in my Substack, in my opinion, had to confirm, if you will, or affirm the lower court's decision that there was an insurrection when there wasn't. I explained why there wasn't an insurrection for purposes of Article 3 of Section 14 of Article 3 of the 14th Amendment. So they had to find there was an insurrection when there wasn't one. They had to find that President Trump engaged in it when he did not. They used his statements after the election and tweets that he liked in his speech on January 6th to basically find him as having incited the insurrection and having engaged in it on that basis. They had to find that there was a self-executed, that Article 3 of the 14th Amendment was self-executing. They had to find that the presidency was an officer of the United States. So we've got this litany of things they had to find. They had to find that a Colorado election challenge, which is supposed to be conducted in an extraordinarily brief period of time, was the proper format or procedural device to use for this challenge. And they had to find all of these things to just go down the line, bang, 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 and decide all of them against President Trump. And that's what they did. It is, in my opinion, just it's a grotesque decision for a variety of reasons. And I try to lay it out to people. So what this is about is after the Civil War, when the 14th Amendment was passed, Article 3 was added to say if you engaged in insurrection or rebellion, you're going to be disqualified from Congress and from some federal offices. And that's what they're trying to shoehorn and trying to use, okay, to liken the Capitol riot, which, and I addressed this in my article also, which is in all probability, once the ultimate truth comes out, we'll find was facilitated and perpetuated by federal agents, informants, and agents provocateur and Antifa people, posing as Trump supporters on top of everything else. So it is a abomination of a decision. It, just really, I was almost just blown away by the fact that any court had reached these conclusions.
Yeah, this is what do they not seem to care, Daniel, about what this could mean for the future? Like I noticed even some leftists on CNN and MSNBC saying this is not good. Okay. And you have like total shills. Claire McCaskill that says, I think it's an interesting decision on the law side of this. Politically, though, I think it was bad because it's going to hurt us. Immediately, first of all, she knows damn well that this is not right on the law. That's number one. Number two, I mean, she was a senator. She's not a stupid woman. Number two, she doesn't care. That comment tells you, for her, it's about the politics. For the court, it's about the politics. It took me no time at all to go and find background on Judge Melissa Hart. This woman gave almost $20,000 to Democrats in 2008. She has given a lot of money when she was a professor at the University of Colorado, tons of money in between before being appointed to the court, including to Hillary for America. This is a woman who donated thousands of dollars to Donald Trump's political opponent. Doesn't anybody care beyond the politics anymore, Daniel? Don't judges, don't lawyers, don't prosecutors, doesn't anyone care anymore about the at least appearance of impropriety? They're not even trying to hide it. She's the granddaughter, by the way, of Watergate prosecutor Archibald what's his name? I'm going on a rant here. And also she's married to a guy who heads up the civil division at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Colorado. Like, obviously Joe Biden could pick up the phone, call the Justice Department, who then makes a call to him, who speaks to his wife. This is not okay. Like, I don't understand how they don't see that they're going to tear the fabric of society apart if they don't stop. And here, because what I know who they, it's, let me explain it better and then I get you to respond. They know better, Daniel. They know better. Don't tell me this woman who went to law school, who had the background she had, taught at the University of Colorado, now sits on the Colorado Supreme Court. Don't tell me that they don't know better. This is supposed to be the most credentialed, the most educated, the smartest, the brightest, the best and the brightest. They know better. You know, they are dangerous people. Sorry,
Well,
I did with that.
yeah, the decision. Look, and I think what people have to keep in mind is the Colorado Supreme Court sanctioned, number one, the use of an election challenge procedure, which is conducted with very little discovery. President Trump didn't get to depose any witnesses. He wasn't even a party. He had to intervene in it.
Yeah.
You know, then the next thing they did is they sanctioned the district court relying on evidence, and I use that term extraordinarily loosely, compiled by the January 6th committee. The January 6th committee was not a court. It was conducted unilaterally by Democrats and a couple of Trump haters. President Trump had no right to participate, no ability to participate, and no one who opposed anything that these people did had any right to participate. And they gathered together evidence that is utterly incompetent in many cases with respect to admissibility in court. So there was hearsay within hearsay, hearsay within hearsay within hearsay. Then these individual interviews that they did, like Cassidy Hutchinson, where they interviewed her 4 times and then cobbled together bits and pieces of each one of those interviews to put in their little TV program. And this court, the Supreme Court of Colorado, sanctioned the lower court using that evidence. It's just it should have been summarily a reversal and a rejection of any fact findings by the trial court, having been tainted by the entire process. So President Trump was utterly deprived of due process. The case is relied on utterly invalid evidence, in my opinion. And you put all of this together, and what you get, the only conclusion, at least with respect to all of this lawfare being waged against the president, that a lot of people don't care. They clearly don't care what the rules are. You saw one of the Democrats, he's a Democrat who dissented, he said, I've been a lawyer for 33 years. I've never seen anything like this. And yeah. I can tell you, I've been a lawyer for 27 years, and I've never seen anything like it either. It's unbelievable. Now, that being said, the final word is yet to be had. The court did stay the decision.
I was just going to bring this up. Yeah. I mean,
the court stayed the decision pending a review by the Supreme Court. It stayed automatically until resolution of any writ filed with the United States Supreme Court. So, and one other thing to keep in mind, Rich, when we get back to whether this was proper or not, under Article 3 of the 14th Amendment, prior to this decision, an insurrection required a proclamation from the president.
I was just going to bring this up. I was going to read what you wrote. Yep.
There's statutory law on it. Dates all the way back to 1795. And the president had to make a proclamation, tell people to disperse and go home, and give them a certain amount of time to do it, and then it would be an insurrection. They ignored that, pretend that it's just unnecessary. None of it happened in this case. And they did that. And think about this. If they're right, if the Colorado Supreme Court is right, then hundreds of courts in all 50 states, all over the country, could all decide these cases for themselves and reach inconsistent decisions.
Without due process, by the way, without any due process, which is in the language, Daniel. It's like, to some people, nobody ever reads dissents. I think people should do 2 things. They should read 2 things. One, because I'm going to pull it up here in a second and read an excerpt from it. I shared the link to Daniel's Substack in each of the comment sections. You all have to go and read it because he really knocks us down point by point. He takes it first. It's really systematic. First of all, like he just brought up, can we even consider this an insurrection before we even get into the question of whether Trump engaged in one, right? So that's number one. And then read the dissent as well after you read Daniel's article, because it's like, it reminded me of what do they call the great dissenter? What was his name? Something they called the great dissenter. And I was reading it and I was thinking, that so much of what he had written in his minority opinions, his dissent, would later obviously be now the law, because the court was just so grossly wrong during that time in our history. And that happened. I feel like this dissent is going to be what the Supreme Court says. I don't know how. It would be nice if it was a 9-0 smackdown, Daniel, because if they allow this to stand, it's not just Donald Trump. Professor Turley wants to go on and on about the precedent for political candidates. I'm talking about the precedent for everybody. If this is allowed to stand, you could be declared an insurrectionist by a court without a trial, by nothing. Ted Lieu said that they had a trial. Ted Lieu they are mixing or obfuscating these basic principles, so we don't have these standards anymore in our justice system, and it's dangerous. Listen, because this is from William and Mary, and it's amazing how many hacks you can find around. But before Donald Trump came on the scene, this is what you would read, right? So it said, historically, the president's proclamation under the Insurrection Act and thereafter sending in federal troops defined insurrection. This is covered at length by some recent commentators on the issue. See Disloyalty and Disqualification, Reconstruction, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, William and Mary, Bill of Rights Journal, Volume 1, Issue 5, 2021, pages 180 to 181. This is what it says. Insurrection and rebellion have high bars that, in light of the proclamation requirement, should be obvious enough, and Section 3 should be easy to apply to those engaged in them. Though the president has sent federal troops to quell insurrections without proclamations and without apparent statutory bases, it is hard to believe that a court or Congress would allow for a deprivation of somebody's right to hold public office according only to the president's objective and secretive assertion. A basis in law which requires a proclamation should then underlie a Section 3 challenge on the basis of insurrection or rebellion. The test then is basically, if somebody voluntarily takes part in a scheme that causes such domestic unrest that the president issues a proclamation pursuant to the Insurrection Act and calls in the National Guard or other military forces to suppress their scheme, then they have engaged in insurrection or rebellion and could be disqualified by Section 3. And you went on to say, of course, no such presidential proclamation was made or necessary. In this case, Maters may recall the U.S. Senate issued an extensive report analyzing the law enforcement and intelligence failures surrounding the January 6th debacle. This report reflects the law enforcement was quite capable of handling the Capitol riot, but failed to due to various failures or shortcomings. The riot got out of hand, and it's very, very different, Daniel. I read this intently yesterday. It was fantastic. But what are they just going to ignore all this? I mean, that's recent commentary.
Yeah, and I think your point is very well taken. That this rationale could be used to apply to thousands of people.
Oh yes,
thousands of people, or even someone who, suppose a guy went to January 6th to exercise his constitutional right to assemble and got ensnared or whatever, participated in the riot itself, and suppose somebody paid his plane ticket. Now that guy's an accessory. That person's a principal to, and that's what this is. That's where this could lead, where there's thousands and thousands of people who didn't do anything other than and not even. It's a lot of these people took unguided tours of the Capitol. I mean, and weren't involved in any kind of unrest. And so. It's a disastrous decision. And I think also what the court just totally ignored is in 1870 Congress, and this is covered in the article, but in 1870 Congress passed an enabling statute setting forth, it's called the Enforcement Act. Here's how you enforce Article 3 of the 14th Amendment, and that statute was repealed in 1948 and not reenacted. There's just the one plausible result is that there is no way to enforce Article 3 of the 14th Amendment presently without more action from Congress. Now, some people argue that the insurrection statute, which is 18 U.S.C. 2383, if my memory serves, it could be used. But here's what's important, and that's a stretch. It's a plausible argument, but no one. Let me state this again. No one of all the 1,400 or 1,300 people that have been charged as a result of the January 6th, what went on January 6th, no one's been charged under that statute. Not even the Oath Keepers. The Oath Keepers were charged under the seditious conspiracy statute, not the insurrection statute.
That's right.
And,
Right.
and there's a reason for that, and that's because this was not an insurrection.
Which is what you bring up before. Like, first of all, this is not an insurrection. And then the part with that in your article about, okay, even if you were to assume all of this, Trump did not incite or participate in an insurrection. You cannot pick and choose what you want to be able to, because they always go to, where's, like you wrote, we fight and quote, we fight, unquote, and quote again, we fight like hell, unquote, to reach their grossly erroneous conclusion that he, quote, engaged in insurrection. However, he literally, Daniel, it's all over the timeline. He literally called, and this is what Daniel writes, folks. He literally called for his supporters to, quote, peacefully and patriotically, unquote, make their voices heard, and stated he and his supporters were going down to the Capitol to, quote, cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, unquote. This is insane. Even the Wall Street Journal, which you note on January 10th of 2021 said, no, Trump isn't guilty of incitement. Inflaming emotions isn't a crime. The president didn't mention violence, much less provoke it. This is all very, I understand everyone's, I guess it's anxiety over it. Let me get your take on this, because this is what I thought immediately. Yeah, the Minnesota courts laughed this out of their courtroom. Florida laughed this out of their courtroom. Michigan, Wisconsin laughed this out of their courtroom. And then you get these scumbag, I don't even, ideologically possessed. They're not possessed by demons. Maybe they are. I don't know. But they're ideologically possessed. They can't control themselves, like the judge over in New York, right? That guy is a nutcase. This is very, very scary. And we are a one vote majority decision away from losing self-governance in this country. It really, that was what I thought immediately, Daniel. We can't keep asking the Supreme Court to protect us, from, this is a very broken system. Something could happen tomorrow and that court could flip or get closer anyway. Not flip, but get closer. Had Hillary Clinton won, we would be hoping that a 7-2 liberal court would do the right thing and just eviscerate this ruling. We are in grave danger at this point. I'm sorry to, be so dire going into our little holiday. I'm always, there's always reason, of course, to hope, and you never stop, but this is serious and we have to be realistic with where we are. As a lawyer, what's your take on that? That we're just one vote away from the Supreme Court from losing everything.
Well, and I think what troubles me the most about it, obviously, a lot of this is political activism masquerading as judicial reasoning, in my opinion. But
yeah,
the other thing to keep in mind about the Supreme Court is the Supreme Court decides what cases it takes. And there's got to be 4 members of the court that want to hear this. They're not obligated to hear it. This would be a purely discretionary review by the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court I'd have to go back and look at the last time I looked at the data, 22 to 2,300 civil writ applications, and they grant a couple of hundred a year. Or maybe 6,000, 6 or 7,000. I get the Louisiana Supreme Court and the U.S. Supreme Court confused sometimes. I think it's 6 or 7,000 civil writ applications a year in the court. The U.S. Supreme Court grants a couple hundred of those. So you start out, when you start asking the United States Supreme Court to exercise this discretionary review, you start out with a very low likelihood you're going to get even the court to even look at it. Now, obviously, this is a different case, and this is a high-profile case, and this is a case that everyone's going to be clamoring for the court to take. And so I'm not saying that this case would have the same likelihood of discretionary review being granted than say one that I filed over.
I was just right.
You know, but it's still not a given. And another thing to keep in mind, that all of these other courts that you were talking about, Minnesota court, Michigan, Wisconsin, New Hampshire, Florida, there's a couple others that are escaping me. I think Virginia. Most of those decisions didn't reach the merits because they found there was a lack of ripeness on the issues because in most states, the political parties decide who stands for a nomination. So, for instance, Minnesota says, well, we're going to dismiss all this because the Republican Party decides who gets to participate in the nominating process.
Yes, such a good point. This never made it to the several of them never made it. What Daniel's saying, folks, is that several of them never made it because of the merits. It was because they were like, why are you asking us to do this? This is party business. Like this is nuts. And let me because one, in Florida, they were like, this is a state. Like this is a state. You're asking me to review federal law. Like, what the hell are you talking about? What? This is one thing I think that's why the Supreme Court has to weigh in, because they're trying to seize power from the Supreme Court. That's what I view this ruling as, like a state court power grab, and the federal courts cannot allow that. That's number one. I mean, not if you don't want to deal with federalism anymore, fine by me. We can all go our separate ways. But if you want to be, a union, you want to continue with our federalist system, you cannot allow a state court to decide who is and is not an insurrectionist in federal law and apply that to whether or not they could be on the ballot. This is crazy. I mean, it's I can't believe we're even having this conversation. It really, drives me nuts like that. But I worry about this constant bombardment of the Supreme Court, Daniel. Is Trump even able to be charged, or is he covered under immunity? You got to answer that, justices. Now you got to answer this. It's like we're asking the Supreme Court to save us all the time from our own stupidity. I just don't believe that it's Chief Justice Roberts. That's not what his job is. I'm not like this. Not like this, Daniel. Not every damn time. They don't get their way. It's like every time they lose an election, every time they know they're going to lose an election, they tear us apart. And we are constantly expecting the Supreme Court or some, august institution to protect us from these, like, I don't know what to call them, Daniel, but they're like systematic failures in our system. Like it's broken. If this is even allowed to have happened, it's broken. We're broken, and the Supreme Court should not be the one to fix us. I don't know how else to call. Inspector General Michael Horowitz should not be in a position where he has to condemn the entire FBI because they did things like that, and you can't expect a FISA judge to punish them for it. If we're at that point, we're already broken. Is that? I guess that's kind of my point in my thinking. What do you understand what I mean?
Absolutely. And listen, here's another issue that people need to be aware of. The Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, is a very inefficient instrument to use to try to right the ship. And the reason for it is, just take it for instance. We've had all of these people in DC who have been charged under that Enron statute, is the obstruction of official proceedings, and in order to create felony charges for what are not felonies. They're all misdemeanors, so the prosecutors and the Department of Justice in these DC cases came up with this, hey, we'll charge them under this Enron statute. Well, this has been going on for 2 years, and it's just now getting to the Supreme Court. So all of these people, even if the Supreme Court corrects it, even if the Supreme Court, which is, I'm going to fall out of my chair if they don't because it's ludicrous, but even if the Supreme Court says, wait a minute, that statute had to do with tampering with evidence in a congressional hearing, not with a riot. And this is a misapplication of the statute, and the Supreme Court has reined this in similar contexts in 3 or 4 times previously. If they rein it in, there are people who've had their lives ruined already for the
Yeah.
last 2 years, and many of them have been locked in the DC gulag and haven't even been to trial yet. And so my point is, that's not the Supreme Court is a blunt instrument to use to try to fix all of this. And the real failure, in my view, is a failure of Congress. And here's why.
Amen. Chat.
Really,
Just saying that now, brother.
really the United States Senate. And the reason for it is the bulwark against all of this lawfare is supposed to be the federal judiciary. All right. And what we've done and what the U.S. Senate has done is loaded the federal courts with these activists who are really not, they're not judicial. They were activists. So Judge Burl Howell in the D.C. circuit, D.C. district over there. She was a lifelong Democrat political activist. You don't put people like that on the court in any court anywhere. And if you do, this is what you get. And what we've had is people in the U.S. Senate asleep at the switch for decades, instead of saying, wait a minute, this is not the kind of temperament and this is not the kind of person that needs to be a judge for life. And so that's what we wound up with is the people who are supposed to be the gatekeepers over all of this nonsense are part of the problem.
That's the question, because I do Q&As on Friday. Question for you, because I would never be able to answer it, is, what do we do about this? What do we do to fix this? There's no short-term solution. I got the hiccups. I'm sorry. There's no short-term solution for this, Daniel. We're in trouble. How do we begin to right, I guess, this ship? How do we begin to fix this?
Well, it would have to be all hands on deck. The reality is that fixing this problem right now is going to be up to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Because only the Supreme Court can rein in all these lower courts. Long term, we need the United States Senate, when they give advice and consent as to these nominations for the federal judiciary, we need them to be a lot more circumspect and a lot more thoughtful and dig deeper and care enough about who these people are. That's number one. Number two. The third thing we need to do that Congress can do, because Congress has, under Article 3, Congress has the power under the Constitution to create and destroy federal courts. So one of the things Congress needs to do, in my opinion, is balkanize the D.C. district and break up the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals and redistribute that so that they don't have this little fiefdom over there where they get to lord it over everybody and for anything that comes out of the Beltway. And that would go a long way towards restoring some sanity. Obviously, that wouldn't fix the problem in Colorado here that we're dealing with. But with respect to the federal issues, I think you'd see a lot of this get a lot better if the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals and the D.C. District were broken up and all those judges redistributed to other districts. They really, a lot of these people, in my opinion, need to be impeached and removed from office.
They have to go.
Requires a 2/3 vote of the United States Senate. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, because we have one side that just doesn't care at all, and another side that's either too cowardly or they're also corrupt. So here, folks, you have Eleni, whatever her name is, the Lieutenant Governor of California, asked the Secretary of State after this ruling to look at whether California can remove Trump, and of course they're going to try. This is an idiot in her press statement who didn't know the proper age to be president. She said the Constitution is clear. You need to be 40 and not an insurrectionist. And I'm like, this is a big problem. Our problem is that we have activist idiots who run this country. They're not serious people, but they are seriously dangerous. And I think you nailed it. This, again, comes down to the fact that our legislatures are not doing their job. And that's our fault, because we got to remove the Lindsey Grahams who constantly make deals. We got to remove the Mitch McConnells who want his Federalist Society picks to get on the bench so he looks past all these nutcases. And the same thing goes in state legislatures as well, in states where that happens. Nobody made a stink about Melissa Hart being put on the Supreme Court rather recently. It took me 2 seconds to find this, folks. Like I said, $20K alone in 2008 tons, including to Hillary Clinton, in the meantime, married to Kevin Traskos, who runs the civil division of the U.S. Attorney in Denver, could have gotten a phone call from Merrick Garland in a second and picked up, hey, I need you to talk to your wife. And then 3 is the granddaughter of Archibald Cox. They're not even trying to hide this anymore, Daniel. They just don't care. They don't fear us at all. They don't fear the legislators for doing their jobs at all. By the way, I don't know if you guys saw it. It's breaking news. Congressman Burchett went on War Room and went on Benny, and apparently your Republican congressmen were running around naked with unknown women, and they're blackmailed. All of them are on video. They're doing this. And this is, people think I'm kidding when I say this stuff. It's like they just don't go to DC or something, Daniel. Like, these people are scumbags. We live in modern day Sodom and Gomorrah. Like, you nominated, John Duarte out in California 13 last time instead of David Giglio. The FBI has Duarte by his balls. He's never going to do the right thing. He's blackmailed. He's crooked. We can't continue like this, folks. Like, something has to happen. Something has to come. It has to change, or else we're in a lot of trouble. I don't know, Daniel, I don't know if you got somewhere to be. I got to blast through a couple of questions here. You want to hang out, or what's your time look like?
Yeah, I can hang out. I got about another 20 minutes.
All right, cool. That's more than enough to cover. In the meantime, folks, Laura, I put it in the chat before. I mean, you absolutely have to go and read this. I'm going to put it in the live chat. Our private chat with Daniel and I and you, Laura, and go ahead and share it again for everybody. If you have not read Daniel's article on his Substack, you've got to read this, because again, there's no flaw in Daniel's argument. There's no flaw. I mean, it's just a brilliant piece. And I'm reading it. And if you're not a lawyer, at least you don't need to be to go down this and say, like, look, this is what this would require. This is what the reality is. This is a dangerous, dangerous ruling. And again, even Claire McCaskill said it's dangerous, but she doesn't care about what it could mean politically. She's worried it's going to help Donald Trump in the polls. This is how unserious these people are. All right. From Locals, Lamont, Kerry Lake internal was shared by you. How believable. I know it. I asked her to look at it. She did, send it to us, and I was like, I'm gonna need to see a little bit more. I was able to review that poll. You mentioned Carrie has by the way, I pissed people off the other day with my comment, Daniel, on Wednesday about Carrie Lake being weighed down by others. Oh man, I got messages from those candidates themselves. Fuck you, Mr. Barris. And I'm like, hey man, I just call it how I see it. You mentioned Kerry has a slightly different coalition than Trump. Do the two of them on the same ballot have a symbiotic relationship, and do neither run ahead of the other? Trump runs ahead of Kerry a little bit. Even when we were polling in 22, Trump ran several points ahead. However, with Trump on the ballot, it's going to help Kerry Lake. And the poll that she did was, and they're not going to show everybody everything, because I wouldn't show people my personal campaign data either if I was them. But what you can clearly see from that, Daniel, is that unlike 22, when there was, it was like an incoherent ballot choice. You had likable Kerry Lake and Yee and Hamadeh, and then you had some others that were not very likable. And they were instead of pulling those others up, those were pulling Yee and Lake down. And even with what is the most disgraceful example of voter suppression in this country, in modern America, even with that, she still should have done better. And I think that, she would have won. I testified that, I believe it, but she would have done better if it was a more symbiotic ticket. And I think with her and Trump, they're going to rock Hispanics in Gila and Pinal. They're going to, because she did incredible, even outperforming Trump in some of those areas with Hispanic voters. And Trump is going to have her coalesce with white vote, while they both kind of generate this new support with Hispanics. And I think Gallego knows that. And I think her polling, when you really review it, it shows that Trump being on the ticket is a huge benefit. But surprise, something totally the reverse of what you hear on TV and cable news all day long. Listen, the McCain wing is dying. They're literally that old. They're literally dying. So that will leave younger, more MAGA Hispanics in a different coalition. You can't go back to the Jeff Flake He can't win Arizona. That's the truth. Mark Sally, we already gave her a shot. She got creamed
She got
twice.
2 shots.
Yeah, that's right. That's
She
right.
lost both Senate seats.
Unbelievable. She lost both, right, Daniel? Because they technically were, for people who don't know this, Daniel's 100% right. They technically were the different seats. She lost both seats, literally. Good job. And we were told that by Team McCain and Team McConnell that she was the right one. They can even convince Donald Trump that she would be a better pick than Kelly Ward, and that was crazy. Yeah, I mean, what do you think about that? What do you think about Arizona out there? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I think Arizona is a wonderful illustration. What we were just talking about with Martha McSally is a wonderful illustration of the GOP's ability to seize defeat from the jaws of victory. I mean, they,
Yup.
I mean, they had it handed to them. They could win both of those seats, and they blew it. I will say this: I think that this time you saw how much more difficult it was for the McCain / Democrat machine in Arizona to steal the race in 2022.
Yep.
So I think it's going to be much more difficult in 2024, and so I'm hopeful that we'll have a legitimate election in Arizona, and if that happens, I mean President Trump and assuming Carrie Lake actually runs. I think she said she's going to run, but
she's in. Yeah,
then,
she's in.
yeah. Then she'll be the next senator, and he'll get the state's electors for the presidential race, and really it probably won't be all that close.
I was just going to say, Arizona's not looking that close this time. Normally, in the last couple of years, from 18 on, when we polled Arizona, it was very close. We had McSally down. She surged at the end, and she got close, but she didn't get there in the rolling average. She won one day in the final 3-day rolling average, and it just wasn't enough. She got very close at the end, but it just wasn't enough. Looks like in future polling, can you ask about weaponization of the courts? Like, is it proper for courts to kick candidates off ballots and disbar attorneys for representing candidates in election contests? Like with John Eastman, Jeff Clark, Brian Blem. By the way, I can't believe what's happening to Brian. He's such a good guy. Him, Kurt Olson, they're just wonderful people. And for them to have to go through this is total BS. There's a lot of grifting out there, folks. And I'll tell you right now, those guys, they're not part of it. They break their butts. I've seen it firsthand. They take a case like they took Kerry's. I don't think I saw Kurt or Brian sleep. These guys work hard, and this is horribly unjust what is happening to them. And listen, John Adams represented the British soldiers because he believed so much in that somebody should be able to take their case and have a defense. And, this is unbelievable what we're coming to. It's just disgusting. But I do think, because I know where you people are coming from in this, that YouGov poll. If you think that there's something, you have to beware of the YouGov data sets when they come from The Economist and YouGov. First of all, I can't believe no political reporter who covers polls is asking them whether or not they use the same data set for both The Economist and Yahoo News polls. Because I'll tell you right now, Daniel, that's what it looks like to me. And it is not okay. That's number one. Number two, if 35% of Trump voters agree with the decision by the court to remove him from the ballot, you screwed something up. Okay. I mean, obviously. Secondly, you should never have used Donald Trump's name anyway. We could do things like, do you approve or disapprove of Obamacare? And get a horrible result because of Obama's name being in that poll. And then ask the same people, do you approve or disapprove of the Affordable Care Act? And get majority support for the Affordable Care Act. We did it with the wall during Trump. Do you support Trump's wall? Was no. However, Laura and I would say, how about a physical barrier? And it would get 67% support. So you use those names and you inject bias. The correct way to ask that question is, do you support or oppose judges or courts having the ability to remove candidates from the ballot? I guarantee you will get 75, 80% oppose. Americans don't like some elitist schmuck up high telling them what they can and cannot do. That usually hurt Republicans in modern era politics over the last few decades, because Republicans want to tell you how you can behave in the bedroom, where you can put it, who you can put it in, right? What kind of an abortion you can have or not have. It's not that Americans support this stuff. They just don't want you telling them that they can or can't do something. Same thing with weed, Daniel. Like, I speak to people all the time who are like, weed's dangerous. I don't like it. But by the way, it shouldn't be illegal. Why does Big Pharma get to push Oxycontin on everybody, but someone can't smoke a bone if they have back pain? You know, like, that's the kind of way Americans think, you know? And it's not that they're like fans of weed. They just don't think you should be able to tell them what you can and can't do. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, listen, when you start talking about public opinion polling and whether data sets from different entities are reliable and things like that, I just listen. All right, because you're the expert, and I can tell you though that if they concluded 35% of Trump supporters think it's great that he gets knocked off the ballot, then clearly there's an error. That should be more along the lines of 3 or 4%, and that's about the percentage of people who aren't smart enough to know what they were asked.
That's exactly right. That's the way statistics works. Like, we have people, Daniel, who say, I'm voting for Trump in the Republican primary, and then it's always like 1%, 2%, right? But then when you say, who are you going to vote for, Trump or Biden? They say Biden. Like, they just don't understand what they're really being told, you know, like, right. And that's why there's always like discrepancies with incorrect voting. There's always like somebody who chooses the wrong bubble. They don't do it right. It's just that's the nature of elections and statistics. But 35% of someone telling you they support a candidate also supporting them being removed, I don't think they understood what they were being told.
No, that makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, look, as you know, in my book series, I covered the presidential polling in 2016 and the presidential polling in 2020.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, there's only a handful of people whose polling data I pay any attention to. And you're at the top of the list. Then Susquehanna.
Yeah, Jim, good pollster. Good pollster. Yeah, even when he's wrong, he does the right thing. He's doing the right thing, you know? Go ahead. Sorry.
A lot of it is propaganda. And I just ignore it. And that's why I see the polls, I see the Real Clear Politics average favoring Trump. And I really honestly don't pay a whole lot of attention to that, because I think a lot of those polls are just unreliable.
Yeah, I think some of them are way out there. I mean, Daniel, when we and that was Daniel's website, by the way, you need to check it out. His books are fantastic. It's danielrstreet.com. I'll put it in the chats for everybody. And many of you obviously know from Daniel being on the show before, but his books, if you've gotten them, you know how just incredibly well written they are and how well done they are. You deserve all the accolades you can get, because they're great. I mean, they are great. I very rarely enjoy it. And I say this all the time when you're on, we talk about them, but it's true. It's like you did one on polls and how polls were obviously used, weaponized, or at the very least, they were in some think tank group think and couldn't get out of it. There are things when I read your books that I have totally forgotten about, because we're hit with so much misinformation, right? Like, for instance, this crap in Michigan. Trump was caught on video. Offering a lawyer? I mean, that's what they caught him saying on the audio. 6 months from now, nobody will care about it and you won't remember it, but they're hitting you with the headline to try to give you this like sensational factor, and that's the intent of it. Also, by the way, it's like, and then the talk we heard that followed it, I just responded to Potato Head over at used to work at CNN, Brian Stelter. I said, because your book is a great example. I mean, really, the lies about the Russia hoax in your first book. I mean, your first book, Daniel, that was the motive for the shooter who shot Steve Scalise. So all I did last night was quote tweet Brian Stelter and said, do you feel bad about the role you played in the attempted assassination of Steve Scalise? Like, do you feel badly about that at all? Do you have a hard time sleeping about it? Because before the Federal Bureau of Criminal Organization got Facebook to take that down, that his last post was, We have to stop the enablers, because the traitor is in the White House, but he's being protected and enabled by Republican lawmakers. We have to stop them. That was the last thing he posted before he shot Steve Scalise and 4 others. So Brian Stelter and others who were guilty of all those lies in your books, they literally were the contagion. Like media is a contagion for mass shooters, they were the contagion for the attempted assassination of the House Majority Whip. This is insane. And by the way, they're trying to do that now. They're trying to they want someone to take a shot at Donald Trump. They do. It's very obvious, Daniel.
I think they did the same thing with the Supreme Court.
Right.
Year and a half.
Totally. Now we know why, right? Don't we? Right.
They dehumanize the opposition, and they know that, at least to some extent, that these radicals in their fringe leftist movement are going to get wound up and turned loose.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% correct. They know it, and they're nudging it. And that's, by the way, a tactic the FBI has used for many years. That's how Malcolm X eventually was shot. That's how a lot of people obviously believe what happened to Kennedy and others. I mean, they were on a roll for a while there, bumping off Martin Luther King, bumping off Malcolm X. They don't do it themselves. They just get these radicals who they control to do it. And you can't tell me they don't know it. I mean, especially in the cases of mass shootings, the media, and I know this from studying this in college, the media is fully aware that they are a contagion. The FBI, academia have told them, you cause mass shootings. This is on you. Since Columbine, the way you cover it, you're exploiting mentally ill people and you're causing them. And by the way, your inspired shootings are more deadly than the original events. So stop, please stop. And they won't. They don't care. It should be illegal or something, Daniel, because they're killing people. They are literally killing people and they don't give a damn.
And then the Democrats, what the Democrats do in Washington and well, everywhere, is after they wound these people up and turn them loose, is use the episode itself to push their gun control agenda. So it's kind of a win-win for them.
Yeah, they hope, how we can get the body count up so then we can get the Second Amendment gone. I mean, it's like unbelievable what they do. It's evil. It's pure evil. From locals, my Free Will and Friday question today is, I just want to hear Rich tee off on what he thinks about Robert Salvador. Listen, I would hope that you guys who, especially my locals community, I would hope that you don't need me to spot a fraud when you see one. Somebody had sent me a pollster, friend of mine, and I'm getting tired, Daniel, of being the only pollster who speaks up. Like what happened yesterday with American Research Group and the Nikki Haley poll. They knew the University of Massachusetts Lowell poll was coming, and they put that crap out. And, to pretend Nikki Haley's 3 points behind Trump in New Hampshire. You may notice that Tom Bevan did not share that poll. You may notice that other people did not aggregate that poll. American Research Group has had a lot of problems, and they knew the mass poll was coming out. The political science director basically threw hot water on or cold water. He literally, let me read you what he wrote. The poll results throw cold water on any traction Haley thought she had, said UMass Lowell's John Cliveris, the center's director of survey research and an associate professor of political science. Quote, despite an endorsement from Sununu, whom the poll found enjoys 80% favorability rating among respondents, and her attempt to thread the needle on abortion, she can't seem to close the deal. They knew that was coming. I found out for sure. I totally confirmed that. And they had this full court press coming with ARG. So they tried to use it in order to spin the narrative, because they knew the UMass poll, if the media covered it, folks, was going to be really bad news for their momentum. And this is disgraceful. No pollster should ever allow themselves to be used like that, let alone be for sale in that way. Like, oh, I want you to supposedly conduct a poll that attacks Jack Posobiec and Tim Pool. That's an embarrassment to our industry, and it's a disgrace. And that's why nobody takes it seriously anymore, because you're just a whore. You just are a whore. You're whoring yourself. You're disgusting. You might as well just take your clothes off for a living. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, really. And that guy, That was asked about in the thing. That's Team DeSantis, the influencers had him on One America News. Apparently, he even did a slot on Newsmax. And a pollster friend of mine, who I told him, go public, say something. Why am I the only one who says anything? He sent me a clip of him on TV on some cable. I think it was Newsmax. And then also an interview he did with Jenna Ellis. And he was like, this guy is 100% a total fraud. Listen to what the words he uses. He doesn't even know the correct vocabulary. I listened. He's a 100% a fraud. He doesn't know what a sampling error means. He doesn't know what the impact of a response rate is. Daniel, he threw in the vocabulary in what he thinks is the right time to make himself sound like he knows what he's talking about, but then talks about it in a totally incorrect way. So it's one of these, like, for someone who knows, like a professional like me and my ear, I immediately know, like you would know as a lawyer, somebody could they could use certain phrases and vocabulary that'll make them appear that they understand the law. And then as a lawyer listens to that person, then they know wait a minute, they don't really know what due process means. They don't really know what this, I'm sure you hear that kind of stuff all the time. That's the way he is with polling. Yeah.
That happens all the time.
He's not an authority on anything. He's a total fraud. I live in Connecticut and want to know if the non-white voters that Trump is gaining with would let us see a positive trend for Trump in Connecticut, like Hartford, Bridgeport, New Britain. That's a fantastic question. Jimmy Costello on Locals. You know, Daniel, I'm starting to wonder, like, we would have to poll Connecticut specifically, but I'll tell you, Republicans, Trumpers in Connecticut went all in on these special elections and then off cycles that they had on early voting. And they're like MAGA Republicans up there in Bridgeport and elsewhere, and they were rocking these local elections. Like, I wonder myself if Connecticut, because I have always said that with work, Connecticut could be close. It could. It's just demographically, it's there. I can see it. But nobody ever works for it. It's just like Maine, its second congressional district came out of nowhere, and statewide got much closer than it typically had been, and nobody expected that. It just happened. Connecticut is one of those. And if the Black community is no longer 95, 96% Democrat, Connecticut can be in real trouble, because you could have a coalition of rural and working class whites and urban non-whites, and all you have left for the Democrat is what remains of their working base, and then their educated areas like in New Britain and in Bridgeport and Hartford. I'm not sure that would be enough for them. And Connecticut has been very close with some gubernatorial elections. So, you know, that's not vote preference for presidency, but it can tell you, like, people have already pulled the lever for a Republican in the past. They're kind of like primed, you know. So, I mean, I don't know. What do you think? I could see. I feel like I would have to pull that specifically in Connecticut, yeah, to see if Black voters are like that there too.
I know in 2016 and 2020 that President Trump, particularly in Western Connecticut, ran very strong. So, you know, he did better. I kind of ride off on, like you, I mean, or like you were talking about. I'm one of the people that just considers, you know, Connecticut to be the, you know, solid blue, sort of like a Democrat in Arkansas. I don't pay much attention to it because he's not going to win, you know. And,
yeah.
The Republicans aren't going to win in Connecticut, but if you pull it up and look, President Trump did well in Connecticut. He didn't win, but it was a lot closer than I think, both in 2016 and 2020, than most people would have expected. But I really don't know much about politics in Connecticut, and I know it's Western Connecticut's the conservative part, and obviously Hartford's going to be the bastion for the Democrats, but whether or not African American voters in Connecticut are trending Trump, I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I have it up here right now. I do. Okay. So, that's the Republican nomination. I guess it's not there yet. I was making the map, Daniel, for the head-to-head between Biden and Trump, and I was worried that it would basically confuse some people because it looked like their support here, you know, for Biden. It's like, why does it look like Biden may win Florida or something? Because it's a national poll and that's the way it looks. But I was trying to show people how much damage Trump is doing to the popular vote margin for Biden because of urban improvement. And Hartford is a place where he did not only better with his vote share, but he added votes from 2016. It's just that there was a ridiculous amount of mail-in votes that nobody can account for. Otherwise
Yeah.
it would have been like if he ran like that against Hillary Clinton, Connecticut would have been closer, much closer. Like if he would have gotten that many votes against Hillary Clinton. So I do think that there is something that I would just like to poll it myself, because you may poll nationally among blacks and see the improvement and see that in Georgia he's getting like 22% or something, but then in a northern state it may not be the case. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying that that's possible. In New York, I was worried about that, or that some people were overstating his support, until Sienna very clearly showed that it is all non-white that he's improved on. So yeah, I mean, interesting. Norm, I totally agree. I'll just jump over this real quick. But Norm says maybe a good idea next year to ask how many people do Christmas because of a significant other. I do think we need to ask about households, because there was just so many interesting things, like for Muslims, for instance. Like we had people tell us in response options and stuff like, well, I'm Muslim, my family's Christian, and they still are Christian, and that's why I celebrate Christmas still, but I converted, but my household's still Christian. So we need to get more in detail. I totally agree. And thank you. Some local said the nativity set question was brilliant and ascertaining real religious participation. Thank you. Absolutely. I thought so too. And I actually dug that out of the Gallup vault a similar way. I just like the way that we wrote it better. But I really appreciate that. Can we please go through the poll that shows most of the country wants Trump removed? There we go. We did do that already, Ryan. I'm glad we got to that. For the next year, do you celebrate Christmas less due to losing many friends and family, due to heartbreak? Due to like heartbreak. That's interesting. I think that's a subset of I know I have family members, because of family who died on and around Christmas, that they have a hard time, and even didn't celebrate it for a while. I know that. It's interesting to think about it. What else? That's back and forth between Daniel and Laura. I don't want to read that. What do you guys make of the YouGov poll? Oh, we already did that. Okay. A lot of questions about this YouGov poll. Here's something for you though. What concerns do you see for the MAGA movement in Texas? Ken Paxton and Speaker Dade Phelan. I think that Dade Phelan's going to be in a lot of trouble, and all the people who supported him are going to be in a lot of trouble. But let me ask you this, Daniel, because somebody else had something. I don't know what it is. Maybe you do. Ken Paxton apparently is trying to remove Biden from the ballot, I guess. So do you think it's the right thing for these attorney generals to do? Like fight fire with fire?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been arguing for that for a long time now. They're going to be unsuccessful in all probability, but
Who cares?
there's a lot of low-hanging fruit for Republican attorneys general. And I'm going to tell you what else, Republican district attorneys, because a lot of this lawfare is being waged by people that have been elected in a particular county, like in Manhattan, the DA, or Fulton County, Georgia. So we have a lot of Republican prosecutors around the country, and the only way to really stop all of this is to, like you said, fight fire with fire. We have to start prosecuting people for things that are really political. And look, and I'm sorry to say this, because this is not what I want. I don't want this to be what has to be done.
Me too. I'm with you.
They're only going to stop whenever the similar means and tactics are employed against them. That's it.
Yeah.
They're not going to quit. And to everybody, because look, I like Governor DeSantis, and to the people who are big DeSantis supporters, if they think that all of this isn't going to be done to him, it's already being done to him.
They're already on him, brother.
It's
They're already on him.
You got a sheriff in San Antonio in his investigation about the Martha's Vineyard flights, if you remember that. Lawsuit after lawsuit over all of that. They had the governor of California asking, Newsom, asking the DOJ to investigate the state of Florida and the Florida governor's office.
Which they are.
Over whether they were misusing COVID funds for those flights. So look, this is the MO for the Democrats moving forward until enough of them get the same thing done to them and their people start going to courts and prisons and everything else, and then they'll put the word out to put an end to it. It's that simple.
Yeah, I totally agree. And they're already investigating Governor DeSantis's potential abuse. They say of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and they're doing that. This again, that's why his rationale with what he said the other day, which immediately I thought was disqualifying. All right, so you are arguing that because they did this, you have to bend. So in other words, play on their terms. We have to play on their terms, and not the way you're talking about. He is arguing, it's just a reality. It's going to hurt Trump. The lawfare is going to, it's not right, but it's going to hurt. Okay. Well, first of all, they're going to do it to you too. That's number one. Number two,
Sure.
if you're willing to ride their abuse of power to get to power yourself, I don't trust you with power. Number three, you're arguing for capitulation. That's the bottom line. You are arguing that you should be afraid because of what they're doing to you and pick the next, what may not even be the next best thing because you should capitulate. That's what he's saying. And that to me is BS, man. Just a word on the, go ahead.
Yeah, well, just look, it's a good for instance. You remember back during the Chicago mayor's race, and Governor DeSantis flew up to Chicago to meet with and address some police organizations. Just go
Yeah.
back and look at
Yeah.
what the Democrats, both of the Democrats in that runoff, said about Governor DeSantis coming to Chicago. They said he was radical and dangerous. They used the exact same kind of language about him that they did Trump. And that's not going away, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. And only when Republicans start doing the same thing and responding in kind will it tone down. And it's got to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, it's sad but true. Just on from the question on locals, I have a hard time believing the percentage of Jewish people who celebrate Christmas. What is the crosstabs on this, and is it representative? Well, remember that sampling errors for subgroups are higher. However, it is representative. It's very representative, and I was skeptical of it myself, and I had a hard time believing that as well, which is why I didn't think that we were going to find numbers similar like Gallup and what they had found in the past. I just thought they were doing something wrong. But the truth is they do. That many people of Jewish and Muslim faith do celebrate Christmas. And Muslims are a little less because you're talking about 2 and 3 percentage points of the entire sample. So you have to understand that would be a larger sampling error. But overall, it's within the right ballpark. It is, which is, I know it's crazy. Well, that's why next year I want to ask about dual households and stuff, because some people volunteered that information, Daniel, which is why we know. And if they didn't volunteer it, then we would just be looking at this like, well, how is this possible? So again, several African-American Muslims told us that they were in dual households and they celebrate Christmas and they like it, and even still contemplate that it's the birth of the Savior. I mean, it's really, people are eclectic. They can be eclectic. They really can be. Merry Christmas, Barris family. What's the likelihood that a national poll favors Trump like in 16 or favors the Democrats like in 22? Always potential. Always, that's from Gustavo on YouTube. There's always the potential for that. Trump, I do think, is his own animal, though. It's different, just from someone who polled both of his races correctly. I'm not ready to say that there'll be a polling miss that favors Trump. I do think it's possible Democrats can outperform, Biden can outperform, and there's a reason for that. It really depends what turnout is. If Trump gets all these new people out that are saying they're going to vote, it may not be close at all. And Trump could overperform and it's over like early. But if he doesn't, and seniors are shifting to Biden the way they are. By the way, let me just say this, Daniel. In 2020, the New York Times also found Biden winning with seniors. He lost seniors. So everyone's making a big deal about, Trump is winning with young voters, but he lost seniors. Ugh. They did this in 2020 as well, almost the exact margin, and they were wrong. Were seniors closer? Yes, but we were right, and they were wrong. So we have seniors very close, and let me just, I can look it up right now. Trump v. Biden with leaners. We had seniors at, and depends what you want to call a senior, but the 65 to 74, we had Trump winning 52 to 47.7. And then the 75 plus, we have Biden carrying 56-44, but together they're splitting them 50-50. That is actually what I think is going to happen. Maybe Trump does a little bit better because he outperforms his polling with whites and seniors all the time. And the New York Times also had Trump losing seniors in 20. He did not. He won them by about 6 points. So just remember that, because I know people have made a lot of deal over that. So the answer to that question is, if that's the case, and then those younger voters also come out and Trump does carry them, we're looking at a pretty easy election for what could be a pretty easy election for Trump, and we're all going home at like 11 o'clock at night. I'm serious. Daniel, I know it's 2:22. I know you probably got to go. You gotta go. Laura's giving me the cue. She was like, "Hey,
I do. And
yeah,
hey, look, thanks for having me on. And
absolutely."
just let me tell everybody the books are available at Amazon. And let me say this: if any of you get my books and you enjoy it, please leave a review. I got the overwhelming majority of reviews are 5-star, but occasionally a lefty comes in, they don't even buy the book and they give me 1 star. So
Of course.
I always ask people to review. And look, everybody have a Merry Christmas. And don't stress about all this stuff. We're going to get all of it straight. If I could borrow from President Trump, we're going to make America great again. I really believe it.
Thank you so much for coming on last minute, Daniel. And absolutely do that. Go check his books out. They're fantastic. DanielRstreet.com is the website. They're also on Amazon. You can go and check them all out. Get them. They're fantastic. Thank you, Daniel, for coming on. I totally agree with your positive sentiment. Merry Christmas to you and yours. And I hope you have just a wonderful Christmas and New Year. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All the best. Daniel Street, ladies and gentlemen. Also, go check out the Substack that was in the thing. Laura can put it out again. And just to give you here, Laura will put it around. Yeah. And there you go. Because Kelly asked, where can we get his books? I just put it's DanielRstreet.com, but I just put the link in there. Laura will go around and put it in the comment section. They're fantastic. Like you could read one in a couple of days, given the time you may have. That's how easy they read, and it flows, and it's a really great. I mean, I had his latest on my nightstand, and I think it took me like 3 days, just sitting in bed at night and just saying, I'm going to read a couple of pages. You get stuck on it. You may lay down at 11:30 and you're like, oh crap, it's 1, but you could cover a lot of ground because it just reads that easy. They're fantastic. What are the odds that the squishes that Trump appointed recuse themselves and stand aside to the left and let the left run thing? I don't know about that. That's a good question. I know that Daniel's right about the attacks on the Supreme Court. Now you know what they were for. They knew all of this stuff was going to get to the Supreme Court. They're trying to intimidate them and scare them. So we'll see. We will see. I think it would be ridiculous if that happened. But I'm with Daniel. I cannot believe the Supreme Court will allow a state court to steal their power, steal federal power, and then B, this insanity. It's about due process. Even the liberals have a long record. You have some of these liberals on that. Well, now that Ruth Bader Ginsburg is gone, and you don't have that, but there still are, long track records of the protection of due process. And if you're Justice Kavanaugh, think about it. He was deprived. He knows what it is to be deprived of due process by Democrats like that, the way that they can just target you for destruction. If it wasn't for people defending him and due process, he would never be on that court. He'd be ruined, actually. His family, his life, his profession, his career, he would be ruined. Serial gang rapist, Well, what's the leap from that to an insurrectionist? I mean, they accused a man who was a pillar of his community, from everything I heard, who was on the D.C. Court of Appeals, one of the powerful courts in the country. They accused him of being a serial gang rapist without any evidence. I just can't believe that Justice Kavanaugh is going to overlook due process. I can't. And we're really quick. I am greatly concerned about how the history of our times will be recorded, and that the lies and false history will be instantiated for posterity because the left controls academia. Here, the losers can write the history as they did when they lost in 16. What does Daniel think about of this, considering his book? What is the solution? Owen, I didn't see that before he left. What a great question, though. I'll ask him again. I think we're all worried about history being improperly recorded. That's why I, for one, look forward to some of the generational changes that we're seeing, because I feel like it's likely that they were at the height of their power already in some of these institutions, and now they're on the decline. Because look at some of the numbers we've been going over. They don't have the support for some of this stuff the way they had in the 60s and 70s. They just don't. So I feel like, there may not be a way for them to replace themselves in these institutions anymore. We'll see. State to state warfare. Yeah. Isn't this why we kiboshed the Articles of Confederation? For the love of God, we have the Constitution to stop all this, which was going on between states under the Carter. Exactly, Jonathan. Exactly. They want to go backward or something. Well, then what's the point? Why are we even in this social contract? Totally. Oh, and I have one. I read it's the red one Rich recommended a couple years back. I had forgotten how many lies there were about Trump and the media's ability to memory hole it. Great book to keep for reference too. Totally. Owen, totally. That is the thing that will jump out at you immediately when you read Daniel's books. You're like, oh my God, I forgot about that. Man, they are amazing, memory hole and this stuff. It happens so much. Our minds get kind of conditioned to it, or at least you think they are, but don't tell me they're not having an impact. I've seen mentalists prove, in fact, that they do still have an impact, quite a bit, whether you consciously know it or not. And that's the value of Daniel's books, is that can never be allowed to stand. And there needs to be someone like Daniel, and I don't think anyone does it better than him. I've seen others attempt to do what those books do, and Daniel is, like, to me, the authority on it. They cannot aggregate and retain the receipts like Daniel has, and someone has to do that. Like, it's a public service. Some of the stuff, the outrageous stuff, never let them forget, and never stop holding them accountable for it. All right, with that in mind, we'll go ahead and end it there. It's 2:30. I will see locals back and forth. You guys know how I do it with Christmas. Put up my recipes. I did the linguine and clams last year. We'll do it again. But I'll see locals, obviously, before Christmas and Christmas Eve. If we don't see anybody else, Laura and I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas for you and yours, and want to tell you how much we appreciate you and the support that you give us all year long. Because if it wasn't for you guys watching, sharing, viewing, contributing, this would not be happening. And then also, of course, it's politics is a contact sport, and you guys are always ready to get in the trenches and do what needs to be done. And we've closed out another year of growth and gain, making this a better show, making the polling a better operation, better, more transparent, everything. And we have a lot of big plans for this new year and this new election. This upcoming election, it's going to be fantastic. So we just want to thank you for making that all possible. And then also, again, just give a word to the wise. Laura corrected me. It is fire strong. All right. If you guys are getting ready to close out your books, and you are like us and you're looking around for, people to share the love with, who does good things, who doesn't, it was firestrong.org. I always say Phoenix Strong because it's in Phoenix, so I always mess it up. But they help first responders who need, in many cases, it's mental health help and intervention. Some of these people have nowhere to go. When they break, they're always there when something breaks for us, and then when they're broken, there's nowhere for them to go. And thank God for places like Firestrong, and it's firestrong.org. You could check it out. And then, of course, Laura and I always encourage people to give. So we're very much a sucker for children. And, between my own story, I get the mental health issue and addiction for soldiers, firefighters, police officers. Um, but then we're also a sucker for the children. And, we love St. Jude's, we love Shriners. Laura, I don't know if you want to bring it up yet or not, but we did find a new one we wanted to tell you about that helps with the victims, child victims
Child
of human
trafficking.
trafficking. And it's disgusting. And after the movie this year that came out, The Sound of Freedom, um, just thank God there are people that do this. It's some of
And
the
we're
most
going to have
dark.
them on the show to explain everything that they do and all the
No,
parameters that they
yeah.
touch.
We'll get there. We'll tell
Um,
you more about them.
yeah, but I also really want to just have you all recognize that one person in your community or your neighborhood or whatnot, because sometimes Christmas can be a very, very lonely feeling for some people. And I just want you to just reach out, because sometimes a Merry Christmas or, just a little simple baked good at their door makes them feel included. And it's really important during this time of year that we look for those kind of people and try to touch them and make them realize that another year is worth going on.
That's beautiful, Laura. Yes, Fred says in A Christmas Carol, more than just fellow travelers to the grave, right? More than just that. Amen. That was beautiful, Laura. I totally forgot about that one. And she's 100% correct. For many of us, of course, we love and celebrate it. But it's a very hard time for some people. And it can be a very dark time. And to just feel like you're included and seen by someone else, and that it can go a very, very, very long way. So, just remember, it's a time we're all a little bit nicer to each other. Let's live up to that and, enjoy the time with our family and friends and cherish it every second and hour. And, again, we cherish you guys is what we wanted to say is, bottom line. So with that, we're going to kick rocks. Special thanks to our guest, Daniel Street, for coming on. Again, check his site out. You won't be disappointed. And I don't think I'm missing anything. I'll see you locals in a little bit. None but love for you. We'll kick more of this, some more videos maybe coming your way. I'll get my daughter to get creative for us. It should be
I
fun.
love it. I think we
Oh
should
my
end
God,
with
I'm
her.
watching.
We
Let's
should end with her video.
totally agree. And with
Oh,
that in
just real
mind,
quick, the
okay.
origin to deuces. When Nico was little, he used to say deuces, and it was cute, and it stuck, and so therefore we go deuces.
My little turkey. And the
Yeah,
origin of that is that when he was a baby on his first Thanksgiving, we put the pots on the ground and he climbed into the big turkey pot. And it was hilarious. And he was like, like a little turkey. And I was like, what are you doing in there? Are you my little turkey? And it stuck forever.
that
So
stuck
he's
too. Yeah.
he's bigger than me. He's 14 years old. He's bigger than me now already. And I still call him my little turkey. And he loves it. All right, so let's end with the Christmas bomb, and then we'll get into the rest of it. All right, nothing but love for you guys. We'll see you soon. Thanks for checking out Inside the Numbers. Check out the Christmas poll. I'll put up the link. The embargo is over. You guys can go through it too, outside of locals, and we'll see you soon, guys. Thanks so much.